I thought it was the happiest day of my life. Winning the lottery should have been our ticket to paradise. But as I held that winning ticket, I watched my wife pack her bags with another man. Betrayed and abandoned, I felt the searing pain of her betrayal cut through my joy. In that moment, I vowed to make her pay for shattering our dreams. I transformed my pain into a cruel plan, a masterpiece of revenge that would leave her regretting every deceitful act. This is my story. This is my revenge. Overall, it had been a nice evening. There was good conversation and some nice wine. Since I had won the lottery and retired, spending my time helping others, I didn't go out much. But tonight I decided to attend a charity dinner to raise money for helping abused animals. I have 2 dogs and care a lot about animals, so this seemed like a good cause. I had checked them out before and was impressed by their hard work. After dinner, I went to the bar for a drink. The 2 main founders of the charity joined me. Over several glasses of wine, we talked about their success stories. It was heartwarming to hear, though I found it hard to understand how anyone can hurt innocent animals. Finally, I decided to leave. After being thanked again for my donation, I made my way to my truck and drove home. Okay, I know what you are thinking. What's this wealthy guy doing in a truck? Well, it's a pickup actually, and a pretty nice one with leather seats and lots of the latest gadgets. I always liked driving pickups and didn't need the latest sports car. I never cared about impressing others and lived a simple life. It was just me and my 2 dogs since my wife had left me. Yeah, I was married before, back when I owned a landscape company. At the time, I thought life was great and believed my wife was happy too. In fact, it was the very day I found out I had the winning lottery ticket that she left me. That morning had started out busy. I had just picked up the newspaper from the driveway, tossed it into the seat of my truck, and headed straight to a job site where we had a big project going on. There had been a bit of a problem the day before with the crew, and the foreman asked me to come help him sort it out. I spent most of the day working with the crew, and by around 2 in the afternoon, the job was running smoothly again. I told the foreman I needed to get back to my office and make some calls. I got back to the office about 2:30 and checked with the lady I had hired as my office manager. There were no major problems, just a couple of phone calls to suppliers to make sure deliveries were on time. So, by 3:30, I had time to take a break and picked up the newspaper I had brought in with me to check my numbers. I bought a ticket for each lottery draw, but up to now, I had only ever matched 3 numbers, which paid $3. I wasn't expecting anything, but still liked to take a chance on a $1 ticket. This week I had done things a bit differently, and instead of buying a state lottery ticket, I had splurged on a multi-state Powerball ticket because the prize was getting huge. I opened up to the page with the winning numbers, reached into my desk drawer, and pulled out the ticket I bought the day before. Taking a sip of my Coke, I laid the ticket down next to the winning numbers and started comparing them. When I saw that the first 3 numbers matched, I thought, Yahoo! At least I can cash it in for $1 profit. Then I saw that the 4th number matched too. Even better, this should be worth $50 or $60. Then I was stunned when the first 5 numbers matched. Wow, this could be worth $1,000, I thought. Then the 6th number matched too. Now my hands were shaking. This ticket was worth a lot of money. 1 number left, the Powerball. For a few minutes, my vision went blurry, and my head started spinning. Then when I looked again, the numbers matched. When my sight cleared, I thought I must have made a mistake. So I checked again, and then once more. It was no mistake. I had picked all the right numbers. The paper said only 1 ticket matched them all, and I was holding it in my trembling hands. We were rich, my wife and I, that is. For the next 20 minutes, I just sat at my desk in a daze, trying to think of what to do next. Let's see. A financial advisor. Yes, that's it. I was going to need some good advice on handling this windfall. No, wait. The first thing I need to do is tell my loving wife. Let's see, what time is it? A little after 4. She would be home soon from her job at the bank. This wasn't the kind of news to be delivered over the phone. No, I had to tell her in person. Jumping up from my desk, I rushed out to my truck, mumbling something to my office manager about needing to take care of something at home and that I would see her tomorrow. Jenny would be surprised to see me home so early, as my work days were usually long. But she would be overjoyed when I told her about the ticket. On the drive home, I daydreamed about all the things we could do together. Travel, see the world. Oh yes, she was in for a surprise, but the surprise was mine. When I pulled up to our house, I saw her with another man putting suitcases into the trunk of a car I didn't recognize. What on earth? I wondered. What's going on here? Slamming on the brakes and skidding to a stop alongside the curb, I jumped out of my truck. Jenny, what are you doing? I will give her credit. She at least looked a bit embarrassed. I heard her tell the guy she was with to wait in the car. She then walked over to me and said, "I'm sorry, Michael, but I'm leaving." When she said Michael, I knew this wasn't good. The only time she called me Michael instead of Mike was when she was mad or had bad news. Leaving? What do you mean you're leaving? Michael, I do care for you, but I want more out of life. I've met someone else who's going places. He can give me things you can't. I'm sorry. I left you a letter inside. I didn't want to tell you face to face. But Jenny, I thought you loved me. I thought you were happy. I'm sorry, she whispered, then ran to the waiting car and jumped in. I stood there, stunned, watching them drive away. I was so confused that I couldn't even react. For the second time that day, my vision blurred and I felt dizzy. I guess I stood there for a good 5 minutes, staring at the spot where the car had disappeared down the street. Shaking my head to clear the fog, I turned and stumbled towards my house. Once inside, the first thing I did was go straight to the liquor cabinet. I grabbed a bottle of tequila and took a big gulp. I shuddered as the alcohol burned its way to my stomach. Then I took another swig, followed by a third. Each one went down easier. I must have drunk a quarter of the bottle before I remembered she had mentioned a letter. By now, I was getting pretty tipsy and wasn't in any shape to read it. It could wait. I staggered upstairs and got into the shower. I just stood there, letting the water run over me until the hot water ran out. Then I got out, looking for my friend in a bottle. Not even bothering to dry off, I found the bottle and fell into bed, hoping for the numbness of alcohol. Finishing off another quarter of the bottle, I finally managed to pass out. Needless to say, the next morning I was in no shape to go to work. I called the office and told them I had things to take care of. Being the owner, I had that privilege. With a spinning head and a queasy stomach, I made my way down to the kitchen where I saw a letter with 2 rings sitting on top of it. The events of yesterday came flooding back, and I ran to the sink to throw up what little I had left in me. With an empty stomach, I went over to the coffee maker. After getting it started, I walked to the kitchen table and sank into a chair, staring at the envelope with those rings on top. Oh, God, I moaned. Where did I go wrong? Still not able to reach for the letter, I waited for the coffee to brew. Filling a large cup, I sat down again, staring at the letter. 2 more cups later, I finally reached out and took hold of the envelope, pushing the rings to the side. I opened it. Inside, I found her letter saying that she loved me but needed more in her life. There were also signed divorce papers. She had left everything to me except what she took with her. She obviously thought what we had wasn't worth fighting for. So be it. I hadn't talked to her about how my company was doing since she didn't seem to care. That should have been my first clue, but I just thought she wasn't interested in the landscaping business. We were doing okay. My company brought in a decent paycheck. Maybe if I had told her about the buyout offer from a big company, she wouldn't have thought so little of me. Her letter went on to say that the guy she left me for had gotten a job as a bank vice president in another state. They were leaving that day and wouldn't be back. She said she was sorry to do this to me, but had to do it for herself and hoped I would understand. Understand? What I understood was that I had married someone who cared more about material things than emotional connection. Fine. If that's how she wanted it, I would make sure she didn't find out about my lottery winnings until it was too late for her to change the terms of the divorce she wanted, or come back begging for forgiveness once she found out. That wasn't going to happen. She took my love and threw it away, leaving me for another man. Hell would freeze over before I'd take her back. As my sadness turned to anger, my mind started to work again. The first thing I had to do was make sure the lottery ticket was safe until I could cash it in. So I went upstairs and got ready for a trip to the bank. I put the ticket in the safe deposit box I had there. While there, I closed our joint account and opened a new one in my name. I did the same with our credit cards. Better safe than sorry. She could decide to come back and try to clean out our accounts. My next stop was to see my lawyer. Though he didn't handle family law, he said he could file the divorce papers if I was okay with the terms. Then I told him about the buyout offer for my company and asked if he could represent me if we agreed to a few conditions. He said he would. My third stop was to a realtor to list my house for sale. I didn't know what I was going to do once everything settled, but I knew I didn't want to stay in that house, haunted by the memories of my failed marriage. It was no longer a home, just a place that was once filled with happy memories from a time when I wrongly thought my life was perfect. Satisfied that I was on track to start a new path, I went home to a warm welcome from my dogs. At least I knew their love for me was real. I fed them and then took them out for a long walk. I will admit that the smaller one was my favorite. She would run back and forth, sniffing everything and barking at butterflies. Then she'd run back to me, looking for approval. Her playful behavior made me smile. For a while, I could forget my worries and just enjoy being with my dogs. When I got home, I went to my home office and checked my email. Nothing urgent needed my attention, so I decided to go to bed early. I was still feeling a bit sick from drinking too much the night before. I got into bed and fell asleep quickly. The next few weeks went by fast. I was busy running my company and negotiating with a company that wanted to buy it. In the end, I was happy with the deal. They agreed to keep my employees for 6 months to see how they performed. I thought most of them would keep their jobs since they were good workers. I stayed on for 2 weeks to help with the transition. Things went smoothly, but the final day was bittersweet. My employees had a going-away party for me. There were a lot of sad faces and heartfelt goodbyes. I had grown close to many of them, and it felt good to know I would be missed. All this took almost 3 months. Meanwhile, I had accepted an offer on my house and agreed to move out 2 weeks after selling my company. The only big thing left was my divorce. I went to my lawyer to see if we could speed up the process. He said he would try. He contacted my wife's lawyer, who talked to her. She was also willing to speed things up. The lawyers asked the court for an early hearing. The judge, who I knew from a landscaping job I did for him, agreed to hear our case. The judge listened to both sides and decided to finalize the divorce in 1 week, as long as there were no changes to the terms. Jenny, my soon-to-be ex-wife, had left the state and had no further claims to my assets. I had a reason for wanting the divorce to be quick. I'd won the lottery and only had 6 months to claim the money. If the divorce dragged on, Jenny might try to get more money from me or even come back. I needed the divorce to be final before claiming my winnings. A week later, with the divorce finalized, I felt a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. That night, I called my sister Melinda, or Mel for short. She was my only close family since our parents had died in a car accident while I was in college. Mel and I had always been close. I hadn't called her sooner because I didn't want to worry her. "Hey, sis, it's me," I said when she answered. "Mike, it's so good to hear from you. I thought you forgot you had a sister," she joked. "Sorry, Mel. Things have been hectic, but they're settling down now." As always, she could tell something was up. "Okay, baby brother, out with it. What's wrong?" she asked, concerned. "I have good news and bad news." I paused. "The bad news is Jenny and I are divorced." She gasped. "Oh no, Mike, what happened?" I told her about coming home to find Jenny with another man, the short talk we had, and the divorce papers she left. I didn't mention the tequila. When I finished, my sister spoke up. "That woman! If I ever see her, I'll give her a piece of my mind." For the first time in a while, I laughed. Mel was always protective of me. "I'm so sorry, Mike. I know you loved her, but you said you had good news." "What is it?" "Before I tell you, you have to promise not to tell anyone. Do you promise?" "Don't tell George about this yet, please." George was Mel's husband and father to their 2 lovely but sometimes mischievous daughters. Their relationship was something I deeply admired. Everyone could see how much they loved each other and their kids. "Mike, you know I don't keep things from George," Mel said firmly. "I know, Mel, but this is about me, not you. Everything will come out soon. Just keep it quiet for a little while. Please, Mel," I pleaded. She sighed and said, "Okay, Mike, I'll keep your secret, but I don't like keeping things from George." "I understand, sis. Just for a couple of days. Anyways, you remember the big Powerball jackpot about 4 months ago?" I asked. "Of course. I even bought a ticket. I remember only one ticket won, but I never heard who claimed it." I paused and then said, "I had to wait for my divorce to be final before claiming the prize." What? Are you telling me you have the winning ticket? She exclaimed. In the background, I heard George's voice. Is everything okay, honey? Yes and no, dear, she said. It's Mike on the phone. I'll explain later, but right now he needs a friend. All right. Tell your brother I said hello. George says hi, she whispered. Mike, I can't believe you have the winning ticket. Believe it, sis. I will claim the prize the day after tomorrow. I've been talking to a money expert about how to handle it and just have a few things to finish tomorrow. I sold my company and house. I have no ties here anymore. Can I come visit you for a while? I asked. I heard her happy scream this time. Yes, little brother. We would love to see you. Please come. Then I heard my nieces asking if everything was okay. Yes, it's your Uncle Mike. He's coming for a visit. Their cheers made me smile. As you can hear, we're all excited to have you. How soon can you get here? I have a plane ticket to Austin for the day after tomorrow. I will go to the lotto office that morning, then catch my flight, which lands at 7:15 p.m. on Friday, I told her. I gave her my flight details, and she promised to pick me up at the airport. That night, I slept better than I had in months. I couldn't wait to see my sister, nieces, and George. He was a good husband and father, and he made my sister happy. Her happiness was important to me. Finally, Friday morning, I waited outside the lottery office. Claiming the prize was more detailed than just handing over the ticket and getting a check. There was paperwork and a press event. The jackpot was over $265 million. The Powerball folks wanted to promote the game. I chose to get the money over 20 years, which meant I'd get over $13 million every year. A lot for a man who came from little. I wished my parents were alive to see my good luck. Even after taxes, I had more than enough. After the press meeting, I said I had a plane to catch and went back to the motel where I had stayed since selling my house. I packed my bags and put the dogs in the truck. My first stop was my old landscape company to pick up Antonio. He was my first employee and stayed with me through tough times. I planned to give him my truck plus a surprise bonus. Instead of going to the commercial airport, we went to a private one. I found a charter flight to Austin that let me bring my dogs in the main cabin. I didn't want them flying alone. At the airport, I handed the truck keys and title to Antonio. We both had tears in our eyes as we said goodbye. I gave him an envelope with a surprise bonus for his loyalty. As I walked to the plane, I heard him shout, "Patron! Patron!" He ran towards me, tears in his eyes, and hugged me. "Gracias, patron, gracias!" He had opened the envelope and saw the check for $100,000. Standing tall, he said, "Vaya con Dios," and walked away. Smiling, I boarded the plane and sat near my dogs. The pilot said the other passengers would arrive soon, and we'd take off on time. I thanked him and took out my Sudoku puzzle book from my carry-on bag. I always enjoyed doing crosswords and Sudoku puzzles when I had time to spare. After about 15 minutes, a limo arrived next to the small jet waiting to take us to Austin. A well-dressed older man and a young girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, got out and boarded the plane. The pilot greeted them warmly, suggesting they had done this trip before. The man introduced the girl to the pilot as his granddaughter, saying she had been visiting and was now going back home to Austin. As they took their seats, the older man nodded at me and the little girl gave me a shy smile. I think because of the dogs, I was placed at the back of the small jet, which could seat 12 people, leaving the front for the main passenger. Once we were all buckled in, the plane moved onto the runway. When the pilot gained enough speed and took off, the sudden force caused Susie, my small dog, to yip. Hearing this, the little girl in front turned around, eyes wide, trying to find the source of the sound. I smiled at her and leaned over to calm Susie, saying it would be okay. Seeing me through the front of her carrier, Susie settled down, although she still seemed nervous. Once we were cruising, the pilot came back and said we could move around. I continued with my Sudoku puzzle while hearing the faint chatter between the girl and her grandfather. After a few minutes, the girl stood up and shyly made her way towards me. Stopping a few steps from me, she said, "My name's Mary. Can I see your puppy?" "Hello, Mary. My name is Mike. I have 2 dogs. The little one in front is Susie, and that's Toby behind her," I replied. "You're welcome to talk to them if you'd like." Mary's face lit up, and she knelt in front of Susie's carrier, talking sweetly to her. Both my dogs were great with kids, which often surprised me since my wife Jenny and I didn't have children. Seeing Mary, Susie stood and wagged her tail, giving more yips. Mary turned to me with hopeful eyes. "I think she wants to come out and play." I chuckled. "I'm sure she would love to, but the airline made me promise to keep her in the carrier." Mary thought for a moment, then ran back to her grandfather. They seemed to have an animated conversation before the older gentleman walked back to me. He held out his hand and introduced himself as Tom Laughlin. The name sounded familiar, then I remembered he was the owner of Laughlin Enterprises, a big company in the aerospace industry. Standing up, I shook his hand. "Mike Johnson, it's nice to meet you, Mr. Laughlin. Thank you for letting me join your flight." He looked at me closely, then smiled. "Well, it's not exactly my plane. I charter flights with this company instead of buying my own. Anyway, it seems my granddaughter likes your dogs." "Well, they probably like her too," I chuckled. "They're good with children, then?" he asked. "Oh, yes. They love attention. I know your granddaughter wants to play with them, but the airline made me promise to keep them in their carriers," I said. Tom nodded and went to speak with the pilot. After a short conversation, the pilot walked back to me. "Mr. Johnson, thanks for following the rules about pets on board. The rule is to make sure other passengers aren't bothered, but Mr. Laughlin said we can make an exception if you assure me the dogs won't bite." I laughed. "No, they might try to lick you to death if they're excited, but they've never bitten anyone." Satisfied, the pilot nodded and returned to the cockpit. Mr. Laughlin whispered to his granddaughter, who hugged him and then ran back to me, clapping her hands excitedly. "Grandpa says it's okay if you let them out. Please, I just know they are sad being locked up." All right, you win. Let's open their doors and let them out." The dogs seemed to know that Mary had helped them, and they covered her with licks, making her giggle. Watching them play made the time fly by, and soon the pilot told us to get ready for landing. Mary gave each dog a kiss before I put them back in their carriers. We landed at a private airport near my sister's place. I was glad because my sister and her family wouldn't have to travel far through Austin traffic to pick me up. As the plane stopped, I saw 2 SUVs pull up next to it. From one of them, a couple about my age got out. Must be Mary's parents, I thought to myself. I watched my sister and her family get off the plane. I needed to carry the dogs, so I let Mr. Laughlin and his granddaughter go ahead. Before leaving, Mary ran back to my seat and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. "Thank you for letting me play with your dogs, Mr. Johnson." "You're welcome, Mary. Thank you for keeping them happy." Mary giggled and ran back to her grandfather, grabbing his hand as they walked down the stairs. As I picked up the carriers and headed for the exit, I could hear little girls squealing outside. When I stepped through the doorway, I saw my nieces jumping up and down along with Mary. They were clearly excited and knew each other. Mary asked them what they were doing at the airport, and I heard them mention their Uncle Mike. As I reached the bottom of the steps, they noticed me and came running towards me. I quickly set down the pet carriers and knelt to hug them. We exchanged kisses on the cheeks, and the girls started talking so fast I couldn't understand them. I just nodded and smiled. "Girls, give your Uncle Mike a chance to breathe," my sister said. The girls giggled and stepped back, letting their mom come forward. She hugged me tight. "I'm so glad you're here, baby brother." "Me too, sis. Me too." After a quick squeeze, she stepped back, and George came over to shake my hand. "I'm so sorry about Jenny. I can't believe she did that to you." "Neither can I, George. I never saw it coming," I replied. My nieces were still excited, jumping up and down. I finally understood something about the TV. "What's got you girls so excited?" I asked. "We saw you on TV just before we left to come get you." "You were on the news," said Jeannie, the older of my nieces. "Oh, no," I groaned. "I hoped the story wouldn't go national." Lisa, who was standing with her parents, asked why I was on TV. My nieces tried to explain how I had won the powder ball. This made the parents laugh. Lisa's dad came over and shook my hand, congratulating me on my win and saying they had seen the same story. After some introductions, we finally loaded up and headed for my sister's home. The girls insisted I sit between them in the back seat and that each of them hold one of my dogs. The drive to their house was fun, filled with light chatter. I learned that my nieces and Lisa went to the same school, and Jeannie and Lisa were in the same grade. Missy, the younger niece, was a year behind Jeannie. I caught up on what had been happening with my sister and her family in the past year. We all laughed when Missy asked if I had brought the ball I won. After explaining, she realized I had won the lottery and that there wasn't a real ball. Soon, we arrived at their house, which was a large two-story ranch. George had a good job at an IT company, and my sister Mel ran a daycare center. Their house sat on 5 acres of beautiful Texas hill country. Even though George's commute was long, they loved the area for raising their daughters. George helped me with my bags as the girls led the way to the guest room. It was cozy with a Western theme and had a bathroom attached. The dogs jumped on the bed right away, making my nieces laugh. After settling in and taking a quick shower, I went downstairs to join the family in the den. I sat in a recliner and soon had 2 little girls bouncing on my lap. "Girls, don't hurt your uncle on his first night here," Mel said, smiling. "Let them be, sis. I didn't realize how much I missed you guys." After the last 4 months, I forgot what it feels like to be with family. I hugged the girls tightly, making them squeal with joy. I saw tears in my sister's eyes. After 20 minutes of tickling and giggling, my sister stood up and said, "Bedtime, girls, come on. Your uncle will be here in the morning, too." With a bit of groaning and eye-rolling, the girls hopped off my lap, kissed me on the cheek, and ran to their bedrooms laughing as their mom chased them. George and I sat back to watch the news. Just as the story of my big win started, my sister came back in. We watched in silence. After the story ended, Mel turned off the TV. "So, little brother, now that you're a millionaire, what are your plans?" I sat quietly for a couple of minutes thinking. "Honestly, sis, I don't know. I need some time to figure things out. This has been both a nightmare and a dream come true. If you guys can put up with me for a few days, maybe I can get a better idea of what I want to do." Now my sister's tears were flowing freely. She sat on my lap, wrapping her arms around me like Mom used to do. George walked over, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Mike, this is your home now," he said. "You are welcome here for as long as you want. Mel, honey, I have to be up early tomorrow. Good night, Mike. See you tomorrow." With glistening eyes, I looked up at George. "Thanks, George. Your words mean more to me than you know." Mel got up from my lap and stood next to her husband. "Bed sounds good. I'll be with you in a few minutes." George kissed her quickly and left. "I'm sure you're ready for bed too, little brother. I know it's been a long day for you." Trying not to yawn, I stood up from the chair. "Yeah, sis, you're right. It's been a long day. Bed does sound great. But first I want to say thanks to you and George for being here for me. Don't be silly. Of course, we're here for you. Your family and we love you. You can stay with us as long as you want. Always remember, brother, if I have a home, you have one too." "Thanks again, Mel. Oh, one more thing. Now that I know my win is on TV, I'm worried, Jenny." At the mention of my ex-wife's name, my sister looked angry. "Don't worry, Mike. If she calls, I'll handle it." With that, we both headed to bed. I felt more at peace than I had in the last 4 months. It was good to be around loving family. The next few weeks flew by. I spent my days relaxing by the pool and using their home gym. My sister is a great cook, so the gym was needed to avoid gaining weight. On weekends, George and I went fishing, a hobby I loved but rarely had time for because of my old job. One morning as I came downstairs, I heard my sister on the phone. "Listen to me, you liar. I don't know where my brother is, and if I did, I wouldn't tell you. He called saying he's on a long cruise and will be gone for a year. Don't call here again." I was shocked. My sweet sister never spoke harshly, but she protected those she loved. Hearing my gasp, she turned around, her cheeks red. "You were right, Mike. She must have heard the news and is trying to find you. I hope she believes my lie about the world cruise and stops searching for you here. Sorry for my language." I laughed and hugged her. "I think you handled it perfectly. You said exactly what I would have." As days went by, I grew to love the hill country and decided I wanted to stay close to my family. I started looking for a place to buy but didn't tell anyone yet. One morning, while George and Mel were at work and the kids were at school, I was having coffee in a local cafe when I overheard 2 men talking. One said he was selling some land he owned. The other said it wouldn't take long to sell because it had lakefront access. Interested, I approached them. "Hello, I'm Mike. I heard you talking about some land for sale. Can you tell me more about it?" "Sure, young man," he said. "It's close by, 50 acres with frontage on the lake. Are you interested? I might be. I'm looking to settle down around here. Can I take a look at the land? Of course, he said. If you're free now, I can show you. I'm Jim Henley. Mike Johnson, I replied, shaking his hand. Nice to meet you. Yes, I have time now. We agreed that I would follow him and left to see the land. I was pleased when we stopped at a gate just a few miles from my sister's place. He unlocked it and then walked back to my car window. Why don't you park here and ride with me? I'll show you around. Sounds good, I said, turning off the engine. I got out and climbed into his truck. First, we'll go to a hilltop near the center. You can see most of the land from there. As we drove, he asked what brought me here. I told him about my sister living nearby and how much I liked the area. I didn't mention winning the lottery. When we reached the hilltop, we got out. The view was amazing. He pointed out the property lines and then suggested we go down to the lake. We stopped at a small cove surrounded by rocks, with a little inlet from the lake. The water is deep here. It would be a nice spot for a boat dock, Jim said. I agreed, imagining a dock there. On the way back, Jim stopped at a few more interesting spots. Then he dropped me off at the gate. He handed me a business card, writing something on the back. That's a general price I'm asking. My phone number is on the other side. If you're interested after thinking it over, give me a call. I thanked him and assured him I would contact him after talking it over with my sister and her family. As I drove back to my sister's house, I felt excited about the idea of buying the property. The thought of the cove and a boat dock made it even more appealing. After that, fishing would be much easier. That evening, I stayed quiet through dinner. Right before we finished, I said, "Hey everyone, after we clean up, can we talk?" Mel gave me a curious look. "Sure, Mike. We can go to the den. Girls, help me clear the dishes." George and I went to the den. He handed me a beer, and we chatted about the weather until my sister and nieces joined us. My sister sat next to her husband and asked, "Is something wrong?" "No, everything's fine," I said. "I've really enjoyed my time here. I love this place. I'm thinking about moving here. What do you guys think?" My nieces clapped and shouted, "Yes, yes." Mel smiled. "That would be great, Mike. I was hoping you'd stay." "Have you found a place you like?" George asked. "Yes, I have." I told them about meeting Jim and touring his property. George's eyes lit up when I mentioned the cove perfect for a boat dock. I told him he could dock his boat there, too. George had a nice fishing boat at a costly marina. This would be much closer. My sister shook her head and smiled. Boys and their toys. But she also liked going out on the lake with George. After the girls went to bed, I asked if they knew someone who could tell me if Jim's price was fair. I didn't know the property values here. Mel said she was friends with the real estate agent who helped them buy their house. Said she could help. That night, I went to bed thinking about what kind of house I would build. The next evening, Mel told me she talked to her friend, the agent. She suggested we all tour the property on Saturday if I could arrange it with Jim. I said I would call him. After dinner, I called Jim. "Jim, it's Mike Johnson. I'm interested in the property, but want my family to see it too. Can we tour it on Saturday?" "Mike, my wife and I will be out of town Saturday. But if you meet me at the cafe in the morning, I'll give you the key to the gate. You can show them around. How does that sound?" "Sounds great, Jim. I'll see you in the morning." I told Mel about the plan, and we decided to visit the property on Saturday. On the day of the tour, Mel's friend, Renee, joined us. We loaded into the SUV and drove to the property. We first stopped at the hilltop where we got out to enjoy the view. It was just as stunning as before. Everyone was impressed. Then we headed down to the cove. George and I talked about a boat dock while my nieces played along the shoreline. My sister packed a picnic, and we agreed the cove was a great spot to eat. While setting up lunch, I discussed the price with Renee. She said it was a bit high but fair because of the lakefront. With that, I made up my mind. I would call Jim on Monday to start the process. 2 weeks later, I owned 50 acres of beautiful Texas hills. I chose the hilltop with the great view to build my house. Renee helped me find a custom builder. I met 4 builders and picked one. I told him my plan for the house. 2 stories, 3 bedrooms, kitchen, dining room, living room, and a den game room downstairs. Upstairs would have the master bedroom with an office, sitting room, and a home gym. Outside, I wanted an infinity pool and a hot tub overlooking the hillside. The builder took my ideas. A few weeks later, he had a plan. With a few small changes, the blueprints were ready, and it was time to start building. I wanted an eco-friendly house, so I made sure the insulation was top quality and chose triple-pane windows. I arranged for a wind turbine on a nearby hill and solar panels on the roof. For drinking water, I would collect rainwater, and for the garden, a pump at the lake. It cost a lot up front, but would save money in the long run. Plus, it felt good to help the planet. For the next 10 months, I visited the site daily to watch the progress. I also learned about local plants because I wanted to design and manage the landscaping myself. The first thing finished was the floating boat dock, and George happily moved his boat there from the marina. Finally, the house was finished. After a final inspection that met my approval, all that was left was to complete the landscaping. I hired a local company and gave them plans. A week later, the landscaping was done. My sister helped me pick out furniture, and we got it all delivered and set up. She has great taste, and since we grew up together, she knew what would make me feel at home. I was ready to move into my new house. It was expensive and took a lot of my first year's lottery winnings, but it was worth it. Almost a year had passed since I cashed in the winning ticket, and I was about to get the second year's payment. I kept my sister and her family away for the last month so I could surprise them with the finished house. The day came to move in, so I loaded my things into the pickup I bought. My sister and her family followed me. When we arrived, the looks on their faces said it all. They were amazed. The house, with its wood siding and native stone, fit perfectly with the landscape. We toured the house and the girls went, "Ooh," and "Ah." I showed them where their rooms were if they ever wanted to stay over. We then went out to the back deck, which looked over the pool and hot tub. George loved the new barbecue I had set up. I really wanted my family to be there on my first night, so I asked them to stay. They lived only 2 miles away, but this was special to me. Mel took the girls to the supermarket to stock my kitchen and get some nice steaks for the barbecue, which everyone liked. While they were gone, George and I went down to the boat dock to check his boat. Then we sat on the deck, drinking some beers and watching my dogs explore their new yard. I had only landscaped about an acre around the house and put up a fence to keep the dogs close and safe. The pool and hot tub were also fenced in to prevent accidents. The girls came back with groceries, and we spent an hour bringing them inside and putting them away. Mel did a great job making sure I had everything I needed, including pots, pans, silverware, and plates. For lunch, Mel and the girls made us all sandwiches and chips, which we ate on the deck. As the day got warmer, my nieces wanted to swim. I told them to put on their suits and watched them happily run off to change. George, Mel, and I sat on the deck, sipping margaritas and keeping an eye on them. Later in the afternoon, Mel and I went to the kitchen. She made a salad and side dishes while I got the meat ready for the barbecue. About 45 minutes later, we all sat down to eat. The steaks were delicious, even if I say so myself. After dinner, we cleaned up the kitchen and then went to the game room to watch my nieces play video games on my new big TV. "Mike, you did a wonderful job designing your home. You must be very proud," George said. "I am, but I couldn't have done it without your help and support over the last year, and all the credit for the decorations goes to my sister for her great taste." I saw my sister blush. "I will never be able to repay you for all the kindness you have shown me," I said. "Oh, baby brother," my sister said with tears in her eyes. "We did it out of love. It was a gift, not a debt. I thank you both from the bottom of my heart. How about we put the girls to bed and relax in the hot tub?" We spent an hour enjoying the warm water under the stars before agreeing it had been a long day and we should go to bed. As I climbed the stairs to my room, I peeked in on my nieces. They were sound asleep, each with a dog tucked under their arms. I slept hard that night and woke up to the smell of breakfast. I put on my robe and went to the kitchen where my sister was cooking a big meal. There were eggs, ham, sausage, hash browns, toast, and juice. It was a breakfast fit for a king, which is how I felt in my new home. After breakfast, my sister and her family went back home. The house felt very quiet after they left. I realized living alone would take some getting used to. My dogs came over and sat by my feet. "Well," I said, "how about we go exploring?" We spent the day wandering around my new property. A couple of weeks later, the second year's lottery winnings were deposited in my account. It was time to decide what to do with my time and money. The last year had been busy with building the house, but now I had time on my hands. I still planned to visit my sister and go to my niece's soccer games, but I wanted a purpose. I thought about donating some of my money, so I started researching deserving causes. This takes us back to the start of my story. That's how I ended up at the charity dinner for animals in need. I'd spent my first year in my new home finding good causes and giving money, often without saying it was me. But sometimes I went to events. I was often lonely with just my dogs. Even though my sister and her family visited a lot, I still hurt because my ex-wife betrayed me. Because of that, I didn't look for a new relationship. I didn't trust women anymore, so I used these events to go out and meet people. On my way home, I stopped at a red light under a freeway. It was late, and I wanted to get home. Over the sound of the radio, I heard a woman screaming. I looked around and saw two men bothering a woman in the shadows. Without thinking much, I reached under my seat and grabbed my gun. I had a license to carry it. With the gun hidden behind my back, I got out of my truck and walked towards them. When I was about 15 feet away, I shouted, "Leave the lady alone!" One of the men turned and growled, "Mind your own business!" I repeated, "Leave the lady alone!" One of the men started walking towards me. "I told you to mind—" He stopped when he saw me raise my gun and point it between his eyes. "Whoa, buddy. We were just leaving, don't do anything crazy," he said, backing away. The other man saw the gun and let go of the woman. He ran away. The man near me turned and ran off too. Seeing no more danger, I put the gun in my waistband and walked to the woman who was on the ground crying. I knelt down and spoke softly. "You should come with me. It's not safe here." She looked up at me and stuttered, "What?" I said, "Come with me. I'll get you to a safe place before they come back." "My daughter," she said, pointing up the hill. I looked and saw dark shapes up there. As I walked closer, I heard a little girl whimpering. She was hiding behind some bags, scared. "It's okay, sweetheart. Go to your mother. I'll get your things and take you somewhere safe," I said in a soft voice. The little girl ran to her mother. I picked up the bags and walked back to them. I told them to get in my truck. They followed, dazed. I threw the bags in the truck bed and quickly drove off. I wanted to leave before those men came back with friends. "Do you want me to take you to the police?" I asked. The mother gasped. "No, please, no police." "Okay," I said. "Is there anywhere else safe I can take you?" She shook her head, looking at the floor. "How about a shelter for women?" I asked. "No, he might have someone watching there." "Who is he?" I asked. "My boyfriend. He hurt me and threatened to harm my daughter. I wondered what I was getting into, but I knew I couldn't leave them. I know a place where you'll be safe for the night. I'll take you there and we'll figure something out in the morning." At least at my home, they'd be safe for the night. I'd think about what to do the next day. The drive home took about 40 minutes. After 20 minutes, I looked at my passengers. They were both asleep. They must have been running for a long time. Another 20 minutes and we arrived at my garage. I turned off the engine. The mother woke up, looking around scared. "It's okay. This is my home. You'll be safe here tonight, I promise," I said. She looked at my face for a few seconds, then nodded. She had no reason to trust me, but she had no choice. I got out and opened the passenger door. The woman gently shook her daughter. "Lisa, honey, wake up. We have to get out now." "Where are we, Mama?" Lisa asked. "We're at this nice man's house. He will keep us safe tonight," the mother said, looking at me with pleading eyes. "That's right, little one. Let's go inside and get you something to eat." "I bet you're hungry," I said softly. Lisa nodded and blushed, looking back at her mother. "All right, follow me to the kitchen," I said. I led them to the door and watched them step out of the truck. My two dogs ran out happily, yipping. Lisa squealed in fear and jumped behind her mother. Seeing the new guests, my dogs ran over to make friends. "Don't worry, Lisa," I said. "They just want to play. They really like having kids around." Lisa peeked around her mom's legs and saw Toby. He was always a funny dog, on his back with his legs in the air, asking for a belly rub. Susie, on the other hand, noticed Lisa was a bit scared and lay down, slowly crawling forward. When Susie looked up with her big puppy eyes, no one could resist. Lisa slowly reached out her hand towards Susie, but just as she was about to touch her, Susie jumped up and gave Lisa a big, wet kiss, making her squeal. Susie ran in a quick circle around Lisa and her mom, then lay down again and crawled forward. Lisa, over her surprise, started to giggle. She reached out again, and once more, before Lisa could pet her, Susie jumped up and gave another wet kiss. This time, Lisa squealed with joy, laughing and clapping her hands. I looked over and saw Lisa's mom kneeling, scratching Toby's belly. He loved it. Susie ran around Lisa and her mom again, but this time stopped right in front of Lisa, panting. Lisa bent down again, and this time, Susie let her pet her. I watched them for a couple of minutes and then told the dogs to go inside the house. One thing I was proud of was how well they listened, and this time was no different. They stayed just a couple of steps ahead as we moved towards the kitchen. On the way, I pointed out the bathroom and told my guests they could wash up, then meet me in the kitchen. Opening the fridge, I saw a big pot of homemade chicken soup Mel had brought over the day before. I put it on the stove to heat up, then took out a loaf of French bread. I cut several thick slices and buttered them before placing them in the toaster. Next, I got 2 bowls and 2 spoons and set them on the table. Just as the soup started to simmer, I heard my guests come into the room. "Have a seat, ladies. The soup is ready," I said. I placed a ladle in the pot, carried it to the table, and set it on a hot pad. Scooping generous portions into each bowl, I set them in front of Lisa and her mom. Then I brought over the toasted bread and placed it between them. I asked what they wanted to drink. They chose juice for the mom and milk for Lisa. While serving the soup and drinks, I got a better look at the two. Both looked a bit thin, as if they hadn't been eating well, and their eyes seemed tired and scared. Lisa's mom kept looking around as if expecting something to jump out. I could tell they were not used to being watched while eating. "Ladies, I need to check my email. I'll be in the room next door if you need anything. Eat as much as you like, and when you're done, I'll show you to a room where you can sleep," I said, excusing myself to let them eat in peace. As I walked out, Lisa's mom spoke up. "Thank you, Mr. Mike. Just call me Mike." "And you are?" I replied. "Elizabeth. But everyone calls me Beth." "Well, Beth, I hope you enjoy the soup," I said, turning to leave. In the next room, I heard Lisa tell her mom, "Wow, Mom, this is the best chicken soup I've ever tasted." Yes, it is very good, isn't it?" Beth replied. I smiled, knowing Mel would be happy to hear that. The soup was really good, much better than any canned stuff. I went to the game room where I had another computer, though checking my email was just an excuse to give the ladies some privacy. Instead, I turned on the TV and caught up on the day's news. About 30 minutes later, I heard water running in the kitchen sink. I got up and found Beth washing the dishes. I cleared my throat so as not to scare her and walked over to the dishwasher, opening it and telling her to just put the dishes in there. I picked up the soup pot lid from the table and saw they had eaten a good portion. They needed the food. Beth blushed. "I hope we didn't eat too much of your soup. It was just so delicious." I laughed. "No, I'm glad you liked it. My sister made it and brought it over. She usually makes too much, and it often goes to waste." I looked at Lisa, who was still sitting at the table, her little eyelids drooping with sleepiness. Now that the kitchen was clean, I said, "Ladies, if you will follow me, I'll show you to your room." I led them to the room Mel and George used when they stayed over. It had a big king-sized bed and an attached bathroom. I told them to wait a moment and went to the next room, where my niece Jeannie stayed when she visited. She always left some nighties here so she didn't have to bring them from home. It had become usual for the girls to spend at least one weekend a month here so my sister and her husband could have some alone time. I came back with a nightie and a robe in hand. Giving them to Lisa, I said, "These should fit you. They belong to my niece, and she's about your size. And for you, Beth, I believe my sister keeps something you can wear in the closet over there." Beth. "The bathroom is through that door," Mike said. "There's soap, shampoo, and fresh towels. You can use the shower or the bath, and there's lots of hot water." Beth felt embarrassed and looked down. She knew they hadn't been able to clean up recently. "Oh, one more thing. The door locks so you can feel safe. If you need anything, my bedroom is at the top of the stairs, first door on the right. Good night, ladies." Mike closed the door and turned towards the stairs. Beth quickly locked the door behind him. He smiled as he heard the lock click and walked upstairs to his bedroom. I can't blame them, he thought. They're in a strange house with a stranger. He got ready for bed and lay down, wondering what tomorrow would bring with his unexpected guests. Eventually, he fell asleep. Once Mike said goodnight and closed the door, Beth locked it. She couldn't help but wonder what kind of man would bring two strangers from the side of the road into his home. From what she had seen, he seemed well off. Although he seemed nice, she had been tricked by men before. After he left, she looked around the room. There was a large bed. She opened the bathroom door and gasped. It was as big as her last bedroom. There was a walk-in shower and a large bathtub. She turned to her daughter. "Come on, sweetie, let's get you cleaned up and ready for bed." Lisa yawned and followed her mom into the bathroom. Beth helped her daughter take a bath, put on the nightgown Mike had given them, and then tucked her into the big bed. Lisa fell asleep immediately. Beth found a simple nightgown and robe in the closet and went back to the bathroom. She filled the bathtub with hot water and sighed as she got in. As she soaked, she remembered the men who had tried to hurt her earlier that night. She shuddered and sobbed. "Thank God for Mike," she thought. "What would they have done to my daughter if they found her?" The warm water calmed her, and she enjoyed the bath, knowing it might be a long time before she could do this again. She thought Mike would probably take them back to where he found them in the morning. When she could no longer stay awake, she got out, put on the nightgown, and joined her daughter in the big bed. Mike woke up early as usual. He used the bathroom and put on his jogging suit. He went downstairs to let the dogs out. His coffee maker had already brewed a fresh pot, so he poured a cup and went to the deck, thinking about last night. He wasn't sure what to do with his guests, but he felt he had to help them. He usually donated to charities but hadn't personally helped anyone before. He noticed Beth seemed to have trust issues with men. He thought maybe his sister Mel could help. He decided to call her after breakfast. Feeling settled, he went for his usual jog around the property. He figured Beth and Lisa would sleep late since they were so tired. He was right. When he got back, he heard them starting to wake up as he went up for his shower. He showered and shaved quickly, then went to the kitchen to make breakfast. Denver omelets were his specialty. He prepared the ingredients and made hash browns the way his sister had taught him. He started a fresh pot of coffee in case Beth wanted some. As he finished the first omelet, he heard the bedroom door open. The two guests followed the smell of breakfast to the kitchen. He smiled at the sight of them peeking through the door. "Come on in, ladies. Have a seat. Breakfast is almost ready." Their eyes lit up. They were both wearing robes. Beth helped Lisa into a chair and then turned to Mike. "Can I help with anything?" she asked. "Nope, got it all under control. Would you like some coffee?" "Oh, yes, please." He poured her a cup. "Cream or sugar?" "No, black is perfect," she replied. She sat at the table while Mike served the omelets and hash browns. He got a glass of milk for Lisa. "I hope you like omelets. They're my specialty." They both took a bite. "Oh, this is good," they said. He smiled and started eating. They ate in silence, probably lost in thought or just enjoying the food. Suddenly, Lisa knocked over her glass of milk. Her eyes widened in fear and her lower lip quivered. Beth jumped up to grab a dish towel, worry on her face. "What's going on here?" Mike wondered. "Someone must have hurt this child to make her act like this," someone said. I leaned down and spoke softly to Lisa. "It's okay, sweetie. Everyone has accidents. We'll clean this up and get you more milk. Don't worry." Lisa looked up at me with big eyes and asked, "You're not mad at me? You're not going to hit me?" I felt tears welling up as I replied, "Oh no, honey, I'm not mad at you, and I promise I will never hit you, ever." The fear in her eyes broke my heart. Beth, standing nearby with tears in her eyes, mouthed, "Thank you," to me. After breakfast, I asked them if they had any clean clothes. Their bags were still in the back of my truck. Beth looked embarrassed. "No, we haven't been able to wash clothes for a while." "All right then, let's gather what you have and get them washed," I said. There was no way I was letting them wear dirty clothes again. I went to my truck to get their bags while Beth collected the clothes they wore last night. I led her to the laundry room and showed her how to use the washing machine. When you have the first load ready, just put them in, add this detergent, and pull this knob out. I need to make a couple calls. I left Beth to sort the clothes and went upstairs to call my sister. Beth sorted through their clothes while her daughter watched from the doorway. "I think he's a nice man, Mama. He didn't get mad when I spilled my milk." "Yes, honey. He does seem nice, Beth replied, though she felt unsure. She had been through a lot and couldn't believe someone would be so kind without a reason. Even if he just took them back where he found them, at least they had a couple of nice meals and clean clothes. She would do whatever it took to protect her daughter if it came to that. Mike upstairs, I called my sister's phone. Good morning, George. It's Mike. Can I speak to Mel, please? Good morning, Mike. Sure, she's in the kitchen. Hold on. A moment later, my sister Mel picked up. Hey, Mike. What's up? Sis, I need your help. Can you bring the girls and come over? I'll explain everything when you get here. Sure, give us 20 minutes. Thanks, sis. I hung up and went back downstairs to check on Beth and Lisa. They were in the kitchen talking quietly. Let's find something for you to wear while we wait for the laundry, I said. Beth, you can borrow something from the closet in the room you slept in. Lisa, we'll find something in the other bedroom. My niece is about your size. In Jeannie's room, we found a t-shirt, shorts, and clean underwear for Lisa. I left them to change. Soon, they came out dressed in clean clothes. Beth had put on a sundress my sister kept here. It was a bit big, but covered her well. Let me show you around while we wait for the washer to finish, I said. Follow me to the back deck. You'll like the view. Beth and Lisa followed me outside. They both seemed impressed with the view. My dogs, Susie and Toby, heard us and came running. Lisa's eyes sparkled when she saw the dogs. She dropped to her knees, giggling as the dogs licked her face. Beth and I watched with smiles. Beth turned to me. You have a beautiful home, Mike. Thank you. I know many people prefer the city, but I love the peace here in the hill country. There's a lot of beauty if you take the time to look. Beth looked at the view, seeming to agree. It was indeed peaceful out here. While she looked out, I took a moment to study her closely. Her blonde hair, now clean, hung to her shoulders. Her blue eyes, still carrying a haunted look, seemed a bit brighter. She looked like she had missed many meals, but despite that, she was quite striking. Minutes later, I heard my sister's car. Beth, I'll be back in a few minutes. If you or Lisa are hungry or thirsty, help yourselves to anything in the kitchen. I went to greet my sister and her daughters. After hugs, she asked, Okay, Mike, what's the mystery? I told her what happened last night and this morning. They need help, sis, but I don't know what kind. Beth doesn't trust men and might not open up to me. I was hoping you could talk to her and find out what's going on. Then I'll know how to help. I thought if you brought your girls over, they could keep Lisa busy while we talked, I said. My sister smiled at me. You've become quite the helper, haven't you, Mike? All right, I'll help out, just as long as she's not trying to use you. Thanks, sis. I knew I could count on you, and don't worry, I'm not using you. Brother, you never took advantage of me, even as a kid. I know you care too much for that. I knelt down to talk to my nieces. I want you two to meet a very nice girl. She has had a hard time and needs friends. Can you be nice to her? Both girls rolled their eyes. For our mom's favorite brother, we can do that, said Jeannie. Thanks, girls. Wait a minute. Favorite brother? I'm your mom's only brother. The girls giggled and ran towards the house. Mel and I shook our heads, smiling. As we walked in, the girls were already waiting for us. I led them to the back deck. Beth, Lisa, meet my sister and my favorite nieces. My nieces rolled their eyes again and giggled. They were my only nieces, just like I was their only uncle. This is my sister Mel, and these two are Jeannie and Missy. Jeannie spoke up. Hey, watch who you're calling imp, Buster, both girls pouting in a mock way. Aw, I know you both love me, I laughed. Maybe just a little bit, giggled Missy. Girls, this is Beth, I said, nodding to Beth. And that cutie over there is her daughter Lisa. Both my nieces said together, Hi, Lisa. Lisa replied shyly, Hi. I could tell she needed friends her own age, but was very shy. Why don't you girls take the dogs out and play in the yard? My nieces loved playing with the dogs. First the dogs would chase the girls, then the other way around. They never seemed to get tired of it. Okay, said Jeannie. I watched as my nieces took Lisa's hands and led her into the yard. Come on, puppies, Jeannie called. Soon the yard was full of noise as the girls and dogs ran around. Sit down, Mel. Want a cup of coffee? How about you, Beth? Like another cup? Both ladies said yes, so I went to the kitchen. I poured 1 cup black for Beth and 1 with a bit of cream for Mel. As I brought the cups back, I heard them chatting about the girls. Mel smiled and thanked me. Beth gave a softer thank you and a small smile, but I could tell she still didn't fully trust me. We spent the next 15 minutes talking about the weather and other simple things. Mel talked about her daycare, her family, trying to bond with Beth. I could see Beth felt more at ease with Mel than with me. When I mentioned how much Beth and Lisa liked the chicken soup last night, Mel looked proud. Beth said it was delicious and Mel thanked her. I felt it was time to leave them alone. Mel could try to find out what had happened to Beth and Lisa, why they were homeless and running from someone. Mel, I need to check the boat dock. I haven't been there in days. Can you stay and keep Beth company? Sure, little brother. I'm sure Beth and I can chat. I was thinking of taking the girls with me. They love running around the cove. Beth, is it okay if Lisa goes with the girls? I'm sure she'll have fun, Mel asked. Beth's eyes showed a hint of panic. The idea of letting her daughter go with a man she didn't know well was scary. I don't know, she stuttered. Beth, Mel said softly. Other than my husband, there's no one I trust more than Mike. Believe me, he will keep Lisa safe. The boat dock is private and on Mike's land. She will be safe. Why don't we ask Lisa if she wants to go? Beth looked at Mel and then at me, thinking hard. Finally, she said, I guess it's okay if you're sure. That is, if she wants to go. I walked to the deck railing and called out, Girls, do you want to go to the boat dock with me? My nieces started jumping up and down. Yes, yes, can Lisa come too? Why don't you ask her and see what she says? She's welcome to come along. My nieces huddled around Lisa, begging her to come. I don't know, said Lisa, looking worried. Mama said I shouldn't trust strange men. Jeannie giggled. He's not a strange man. He's Uncle Mike. He'll take care of us. You'll like the boat dock. We can skip rocks on the water. Please come. Lisa was unsure. On one hand, she really wanted to spend more time with her new friends. On the other hand, the idea of being away from her mom worried her. Finally, she decided she wanted to go. Okay, I'll ask Mom, but I don't think she'll let me. With that, the three girls ran onto the deck. Lisa stopped in front of her mother while my nieces stood behind her. Mom, can I go with Jeannie and Missy to see the boat? Please, please, my nieces begged, all three giving Beth big puppy dog eyes. Lisa, are you sure you want to? Beth asked. Yes, Mom. Jeannie and Missy will take care of me. Yes, Miss Beth, we'll take care of her, Jeannie pleaded. Beth turned to me. How long will you be gone, Mike? We'll be back in about an hour. That way the girls can have fun and still be back in time for lunch. Well, if you're sure you want to go, Lisa, then I guess it's okay. Oh, thank you, Mom, Lisa cried, hugging her mother's neck. With that settled, I said, Load up, girls. Take the dogs while I get my keys. The girls ran to my truck, chatting excitedly like I was taking them to Disney World. As they ran through the door, I turned to Beth. She'll be fine, I promise, and I'll bring her back if she's not having fun. Beth nodded and looked down, still worried if she made the right choice. It only took a few minutes to reach the cove. As soon as I turned off the engine, the girls and the dogs jumped out and started playing. I sat in the shade of a large oak tree, watching. I always enjoyed watching the girls and dogs play. Sometimes one of the dogs would run over and give me a big lick, showing they were having fun. Jeannie and Missy also took turns running over to hug me. Whenever my nieces hugged me, I could see Lisa watching. I thought she wanted to join in, but I didn't push her. She needed to decide for herself if she could trust me. I even let them take off their shoes and wade in the shallow part of the cove. Finally, it was time to leave. I told the girls to put their shoes on while I checked the boat. I saw Lisa whispering to the other girls. A minute later, all three came to me. Jeannie and Missy stood behind Lisa. Go on, Lisa. Ask him. He won't bite, I promise, Missy said. Lisa looked down shyly and asked, Can I see the boat, Mr. Mike? I've never seen one up close. Laughing, I replied, Sure, sweetie, but we have rules on the dock. Be very careful and no playing around, okay? Yes, sir. I promise. We walked down the ramp to the floating platform. I let Jeannie and Lisa go first so I could watch them. Lisa held Jeannie's hand tightly. This was a big adventure for her. I followed, holding Missy's hand. The girls knew the safety rules for boating. If they didn't follow them, they couldn't go on the boat. The dock had space for 2 boats and a big platform with lockers. Each slot had a lift to keep boats out of the water when not in use. I told the girls to wait while I lowered the boat. Once the boat was in the water, I took off the cover and climbed in. First, I called Missy and lifted her into the boat. Then I told Jeannie to bring Lisa over. I lifted Lisa in next. She looked surprised when I touched her, but I quickly put her in the boat next to Missy. Finally, I lifted Jeannie in. I sat in the driver's seat and told Lisa she could sit next to me. I explained the different parts of the boat. She nodded the whole time. I knew we needed to get back soon to avoid worrying Beth. "Okay, girls," I said. "I'd love to take you for a ride on the lake, but I didn't ask your moms. We need to get back for lunch." I stepped out and lifted Jeannie to the platform first. Lisa came next, this time letting me lift her without hesitation. Last, I lifted Missy out. The three girls held hands and whispered to each other while I covered the boat and lifted it out of the water again. We walked back to my truck the same way, with Jeannie and Lisa holding hands and Missy and me behind them. I got everyone back in the truck, and we headed home. When I turned off the engine, everyone got out. This time, the three girls waited for me. As I walked up, Lisa said, "Thank you, Mr. Mike. I had a lot of fun." "You're welcome, honey. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself." "Thanks, Uncle Mike. We had fun too," Jeannie said. She and Missy hugged my legs. "You're welcome, girls. Now let's go inside and let Lisa's mom know we're back and safe. Then it'll be time for lunch." "Would you girls like me to make some of my famous hamburgers?" asked Uncle Mike. Jeannie and Missy jumped up and down. "Yes, yes, yummy!" they exclaimed together. Missy turned to Lisa. "My Uncle Mike makes the best hamburgers in the whole wide world," she said proudly. We walked into the living room and saw Mel and Beth sitting together. I noticed Beth had been crying. I looked at my sister, who mouthed "later" to me. I nodded. Lisa, still full of excitement, ran to her mother. "Mama, Mama, we had so much fun. We skipped rocks, waded in the water, and I even got to sit in a boat." Beth turned to me with a serious look. "You took my daughter on a boat?" she asked. I held my hands up. "Whoa, hang on. We just sat in the boat at the dock. I didn't even start the engine. I was with them the whole time. I wouldn't take Jeannie and Missy out without their parents knowing and saying yes." Beth's expression softened. "Oh, Mama, don't be mad. I had so much fun. Mr. Mike told me the safety rules, and Jeannie looked out for me the whole time," Lisa pleaded. Beth hugged Lisa. "It's okay, baby. Mama's not mad. I'm glad you had fun." Then she looked up at me. "I'm sorry, Mike. I should have listened first." "That's okay, Beth. No harm done. Now how about those burgers I promised the girls?" Mel spoke up for the first time. "Oh yeah, Beth. You have to try Mike's hamburgers. He's really good at grilling. How can we help, Mike?" "Nothing needed, ladies. This is my treat. Jeannie, Missy, why don't you show Lisa the game room, and you two can relax with your tea while I get everything ready." Without waiting for an answer, I walked into the kitchen. Mel and Beth looked at each other and shrugged. I got to work, seasoning the meat, slicing tomatoes and onions, and prepping the lettuce. I laid out different cheeses on a platter so everyone could choose what they liked. I opened a can of baked beans and put them on the stove to simmer. Then I took the patties and buns outside to the grill, fired it up, and started cooking. While the burgers were on the grill, I sat on the deck, sipping iced tea, thinking about the day and what Mel might have learned about Beth and Lisa. Just before the patties were done, I toasted the buns on the grill. Then I brought everything inside and set it all up on the counter. I called out, "Mel, Beth, tell the girls lunch is ready." I sat down at the table to wait. Everyone must have been hungry because they quickly filled the kitchen. "Okay, moms, help the girls make their burgers just the way they like them." Mel went to the counter with Beth. "You make one for Lisa, and I'll start with Missy. Missy, honey, come tell me what you want on your burger." Soon, everyone had their plates, and we all sat at the table. I got up to make my own burger and noticed everyone watching me. "Go ahead and eat, ladies. Don't wait for me." Beth took a bite of her burger and smiled. "Oh, Mel, you weren't kidding. This burger is amazing." I grinned at the compliment and joined them at the table. The girls chatted happily while we ate. I stayed quiet and listened. After lunch, Mel and Beth insisted on cleaning up. I didn't argue because I prefer cooking over cleaning. While they cleared the table, I took the younger girls back to the game room. I sat in my favorite chair and watched them play a video game. I must have been more tired than I thought because I nodded off. I woke up to someone gently shaking my shoulder. "Mike, little brother, wake up." I opened my eyes to see my sister smiling at me. "I guess I needed a nap," I said with a sheepish smile. "Must be a sign you're getting old," teased Mel. "It's time for the girls and me to go home. We don't want George worrying." "Okay, sis. I'll walk you out." I stretched and followed Mel to the car. Beth stood at the door, watching. Lisa and my nieces were already by the car, waiting. "Get in the car, girls. Your dad's waiting," Mel said. Then she turned and hugged me, whispering, "Call me when you get a chance." I hugged her back. "I'll call you later, sis." As I walked back to the house, I saw Lisa run to her mother. They both waved as Mel drove away. I wondered what Mel had found out. Back inside, Beth spoke to me. "Your sister is very sweet and her daughters are adorable." "I really like Jeannie and Missy," Lisa added. "And I can tell they really like you too, sweetie. And yes, Beth, I think they are very special people, and not just because we're related. Have you checked out the game room yet?" "No, not yet, but I did hear the girls talking about it." "Then come with me. I'll show you how to work the TV. Lisa already knows how to work the video games, and I have a collection of board and card games too. I will leave you two to have some fun. I work from home, so I need to spend some time in my office." I took them to the game room and showed them where everything was. Then I excused myself and went back upstairs. Once in my office, I checked my emails and replied to a few urgent ones. I wanted to give Mel time to get home and talk with George, as I knew he would be curious about why I invited the girls over, but not him. With Beth feeling uneasy around men, I figured it would be better if just the girls came over. Half an hour later, I finished my emails and was eager to talk to Mel, so I called. Like this morning, George answered the phone first. "Hi, George, it's Mike," knowing he could see who was calling. "Hello, Mike. What's this Mel has been telling me? You're now picking up strange women and taking them home?" "Oh, geez, George, it's not like that at all," I pleaded. I heard George chuckle. "If you say so, buddy. Hang on, I'll get your sister. I know she wants to talk to you." A minute later, my sister picked up. After a few pleasantries, she began telling me about her conversation with Beth. At first, Beth was hesitant to open up, but as they continued to talk, she shared more and more. Beth told Mel how her father had left her and her mother to struggle. Her mother worked 2 jobs until Beth finished high school. Once out of school, she got a job, and they were getting by. But then, Beth got pregnant with Lisa, and the father left town as soon as he found out. After Lisa was born, Beth stayed with her mom and worked at a diner to support them. Her mom watched Lisa when Beth worked. About a year ago, Beth met another man. At first, he was really nice to both her and her daughter. But 6 months ago, Beth's mom passed away, and the new boyfriend convinced her to move in with him. That's when things started to change. He became abusive. Beth didn't really know what he did for a living, as he was always vague about his work. She finally suspected he was dealing drugs. A month ago, things came to a head when he came home drunk and high. There was a fight, and he beat her, threatening to kill her and her daughter. Beth managed to get Lisa and locked themselves in a bedroom until he passed out. She grabbed what little they could carry and decided to leave. On their way out, she saw some money her boyfriend had dropped. She took it, and they left. They made it to the highway where a trucker gave them a lift into Austin. They got by on the money for a while, living in cheap motels. But Beth couldn't find work, and they eventually found themselves on the streets. That's when I found them under the bridge. Now she's scared her ex-boyfriend is still looking for them and will hurt her and Lisa if he finds them. "Wow, Mel," I said, after hearing everything. "I can see why she doesn't trust men. But if it's all true, she doesn't deserve what's happened to her. Now, I have to figure out how to help her and Lisa." "Mike, I looked into her eyes as she told me her story, and I don't think she was lying," my sister said. "Thanks again, sis. You got the answers to the questions I had about her, and thank George for letting you help out today." After saying goodbye, I sat back to think about what my sister had told me. I stood up and went back downstairs. I needed to figure out what to do next, and a lot depended on Beth. I entered the game room and saw Lisa watching cartoons while Beth read a magazine. Lisa looked up at me as I entered, and I smiled at her. "You can keep watching your cartoons, sweetie. I just need to talk to your mom in the living room, okay?" Lisa smiled and nodded, turning back to the TV. I turned to Beth and saw her eyes darken, but she got up and followed me to the other room. So, Mike, what happens now? Are you going to take us back to where you found us? Beth asked, worry clear in her voice. Is that what you want, Beth? To put your daughter back on the streets? To face the dangers like last night? I asked. When I said this, Beth sank down onto the couch, tears flowing from her eyes. No, I don't want that for Lisa, she said emphatically. But I don't know what to do. I have no family and nowhere to go. What would you like to happen, Beth? I don't know, Mike. I'm all out of answers. I do know I'm tired of running and being afraid. We sat in silence for a moment before I said, Will you let me help you and Lisa? Beth looked at me, suspicion filling her eyes. Why would you do that for us, Mike? You don't even know us. What's in it for you? First off, Beth, I neither expect nor want anything from you or Lisa in return. I was lucky and got some money recently. For the past year, I've been helping people by giving money to good charities, but I haven't been helping people directly. Maybe I'm being selfish. If I help you and Lisa fix your lives, I'll feel good about it. So it's up to you, Beth. I'm offering to help you and your daughter, but I can't force you. You and Lisa can talk it over and decide by tomorrow. If you want my help, we'll make a plan together. You can leave anytime you want. The only thing I ask is that you try your best for yourself and your daughter. If you don't trust me, I can take you wherever you want tomorrow. It's your choice. I'm tired and didn't sleep well last night, so I'm going to bed. You and Lisa can use the game room and eat anything you find in the kitchen. You already know where to sleep. Good night. I stood up, walked to the stairs, and went to my bedroom, leaving Beth to think about what I said. Beth sat and stared at Mike's back as he went upstairs. Is this real? She wondered. Could Mike really want to help without wanting anything back? She thought about everything he had done since he found them. He rescued her from a bad situation and took them to his home. He gave them food and a safe place to stay, and she remembered his sister Mel and her little girls who clearly loved Mike. He hadn't tried anything inappropriate, in fact. He said clearly he wanted nothing from her. Would it be so bad to accept his help? If he was like the other men in her life, she could leave with Lisa again. But for now, they had clean clothes, hot meals, and a warm bed. She saw that Lisa was already happier from playing with kids her own age. Beth decided to accept his offer but stay careful about his intentions. She had to try this for her daughter's sake. In my room, I took a shower and got into bed. I couldn't sleep easily, thinking about the story Beth told Mel about her life. If it was true, I hoped she would let me help her, especially for her daughter. My sister told me that their clothes were very old and worn, so the first thing would be to get new clothes for both of them if Beth decided to stay. Then, we need to get Lisa into school. I would need to talk to Beth about getting her school papers. With these thoughts in my mind, I finally fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. like usual. I put on my jogging suit, let the dogs out, had a cup of coffee, and went for my morning run. Unlike yesterday, I found Beth and Lisa in the kitchen when I came back. Lisa was sitting at the table watching her mom cook. Beth turned towards me when I walked in. I hope you don't mind. I thought I would make breakfast this morning. No, not at all. I'm just going to take a quick shower and I'll be back, I said, heading to my room. I showered and shaved quickly, got dressed fast and went back to the kitchen. My timing was perfect as Beth was just putting the plates on the table. I sat down and looked at Lisa. She gave me a shy smile and said, "Good morning, Mr. Mike." "Good morning, sweetie. How are you today?" "I'm good," she giggled. "And Beth, how are you this morning?" I asked. "I'm good," she said with a slight smile, making Lisa giggle again. I started eating breakfast, 2 fried eggs, 2 pancakes, sausage, and toast. It was really tasty. I have to say, Beth, this breakfast is great. Your pancakes are light and fluffy. You have to show me how to make them like this. Beth saw I was sincere and looked pleased. Note to self, Beth needs more compliments. Lisa was humming as she ate, and it made me happy. When she finished, she looked up. "Mr. Mike, can I go outside and play with the puppies?" "It's fine with me, Lisa, but you better ask your mother." "Can I, Mama?" Beth thought for a moment. "Okay, honey. Just be careful." "I will, Mama," said Lisa, jumping up to kiss her mom on the cheek before running outside. I looked at Beth. She really is a sweet child. Yes, she is. I think I would have given up sometimes if not for her. She is the center of my life. We sat quietly, drinking our coffee. Then I asked, "Have you made your decision, Beth?" "Yes, Mike, I have. It would be foolish to turn down your offer. For the sake of my daughter, I will accept. I still have some concerns about your motives, but I will trust you for now until you prove otherwise." "I understand, Beth, and that's okay. I get why you'd have concerns. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a phone call to make. Then I'll help you clean up the kitchen." "No, Mike. I will clean up in here." "I want to help, please?" she asked. I could see she meant it. I thought it was good she wanted to be helpful. "Okay, I'll be in the game room." I left the kitchen and took out my phone. I called my sister's number. George, as usual, answered. "Hey, George, it's me," I said. "Let me guess, you need my family again?" he joked. "Yes, if Mel is okay with it, but only if you are too." "All right, I'll let you talk to your sister. But you owe me," he chuckled before calling my sister. "Hi, little brother, how are you?" she asked. I made Beth an offer to help her get back on her feet, and she accepted. "Mike, you're a good man. I hope this works out. I was worried at first, but after talking to Beth, I think you're doing the right thing." I laughed a little. I wish she saw it that way too, but she doesn't trust me yet. Maybe in time. I called because I wanted to see if you and the girls could take Beth and Lisa shopping for new clothes and things they need. Use my credit card, of course. A day shopping and spending your money? Let me think. Sis paused for effect. "Okay, count me in. Have them ready. We'll be over in about an hour." "Thanks, sis. I love you." "I know, little brother. See you soon." Now I had to tell Beth and Lisa about the shopping trip. I went to the kitchen door and looked in. Like her daughter earlier at breakfast, I could hear Beth humming while cleaning up. I gave a gentle cough to let Beth know I was there. She turned around, her face blushing as she realized I heard her humming. I wisely ignored it. "I wanted to tell you that Mel and the girls will be here soon. They're taking you and Lisa shopping." "Shopping?" Beth asked. "Yes, for new clothes, shoes, whatever else you need. If you let me help, you and Lisa need these things." I saw Beth swallow her pride. "All right, Michael, if you say so." It was the first time she called me by my full name. I liked it for some reason. Beth walked to the back door and called for Lisa. Huffing and puffing, Lisa came running up, chased by my two dogs. "Yes, Mama?" "Come in now and take a bath and put on clean clothes. Mel and the girls are coming to take us shopping," Beth said. At the mention of my nieces, Lisa's eyes lit up like a Christmas tree. "Jeannie and Missy are coming? Yay! Okay, Mama, I'll hurry and take my bath." She scampered off to the bathroom. I was still chuckling when Beth left to join Lisa. To pass the time, I went to the game room and turned on a football game. Neither team was my favorite, but I enjoy watching. Half an hour later, I heard little feet running towards me. "Are they here yet?" Lisa asked, bursting into the room. "Not yet, sweetie. Just a little longer. Here, I'll change the channel to cartoons. You can watch until they get here." "All right," she said sweetly, plopping down on the couch. I grinned as I watched her fidget, looking out the window constantly for her new friends to arrive. Another 15 minutes passed, and Beth came in. I saw she was wearing one of Mel's dresses. "Do you think your sister would mind me wearing her dress? I don't have anything nice to wear." "I'm sure it'll be fine, Beth. Don't worry." Right then, I saw their car pulling up. Lisa jumped up, screaming, "They're here! They're here!" And in less than 2 seconds, she was out the door to see her new friends. I just looked at Beth and grinned. For the first time, she smiled back, and it lit up her face. We followed Lisa outside to greet my sister and nieces. After saying hello, we got the 3 little ones strapped into the back seat and Beth in the front passenger seat. My sister came over to me. "Any instructions, Mike?" she asked. I handed her my credit card. "Come on, sis. I'm just a regular guy. What do I know about what women need or want? Take them out, buy them what they need. Get their hair done, whatever you think. Clothes, shoes, makeup. Treat everyone to lunch. If you and the girls see anything you like, add it to my tab. Just try to keep it under $1 million, okay?" My sister giggled. "Right, I got it. 1 million is our limit. Bye, little brother." With that, she spun and headed to her car. "Mel!" I called after her. She just spun and blew me a kiss before hopping into her car and speeding off. I shuddered and walked back to the house. If I kept this up, I might have to take out a loan. To pass the time, I went to my home gym and worked out for 2 hours. Then I went to the backyard and played with the dogs. I made myself a nice salad for lunch and then went to the game room to watch TV. By 5 o'clock, I was pacing back and forth. At 6 o'clock, I started to worry. Just as I was about to call my sister, I saw her car pulling up. Acting like I wasn't worried, I quickly sat down in my chair and flipped the channel to ESPN. I could hear the front door open and the sound of female laughter. Still pretending not to care, I sat there as my nieces and Lisa burst into the room. My 2 nieces jumped into my lap, laughing. "Uncle Mike, we had so much fun," Missy said. "Look at Lisa. She has all new clothes and her hair done." I looked over at Lisa, who was standing shyly watching me and my nieces. She did look nice in her new clothes, and her haircut showed off her cute little face. My, I said. "You look lovely, sweetie." Lisa turned red at my words. "Thank you, Mr. Mike." I then saw my sister and Beth walk into the room. When I looked at Beth, I couldn't breathe. She looked completely different. My sister noticed me staring. "Aren't you going to say something, Mike?" asked Mel. "You look very nice, Beth." I felt my face turn red as I stammered. "Thank you, Michael. That's sweet of you," Beth said, blushing. Mel then told me, "Get up, Mike. Go and bring in their bags so the girls and I can get home." I set my nieces on the floor and quickly did as she asked. 3 trips later, I had everything moved to their room. I returned to the game room and told Mel that everything was unloaded. My sister got up, told the girls to get in the car, and then walked over to Beth. She kissed her on the cheek and said they would meet up later in the week. Heading for the door, she told me to walk her out. Once we reached her car, Mel turned to me. "Mike, I have to say that after spending the day with Beth and her daughter, they are truly nice people. What you're doing for them is really kind." I didn't know what to say, so I just hugged my sister, kissed my nieces on the cheek, and went back inside. As I walked through the front door, I could hear Beth and Lisa chatting excitedly about their day. I went to the game room and told Beth I had put their things in their room. "I'm going to bed now," I told them. "If you're hungry, help yourselves to whatever is in the kitchen. I'll see you in the morning." I turned and walked swiftly to my room. After shutting the door behind me, I sat on my bed. I've only known Beth for 2 days, but when she walked in tonight, I was surprised. She was so beautiful, and my feelings for her were becoming confusing. "Get a grip," I told myself. "Do you want to go through another Jenny fiasco?" Thinking of my ex-wife and what she did to me was enough to snap me out of it. Beth and Lisa are just a project. I'm doing a good deed, not getting my heart broken again. Beth was taken aback that Mike had just walked in and said he was going to bed. She and Lisa had spent a wonderful day with Mel and her daughters. They had so much fun together. But now, coming back to Mike's home, he seemed cold and uneasy. Beth started to worry that maybe they had gone too far today. Beth hadn't wanted to spend that much money, but Mel had insisted. Mel could be very convincing when she wanted to be. The morning had been tense for Beth, but by lunchtime she and Mel were getting along really well. By the time they got back to Mike's home, Beth felt like she had known Mel for years. Watching Lisa laugh and have fun with her new friends was also amazing. It had been a long time since she had seen Lisa this happy. Mike's reaction when they returned was not what Beth had expected. She wasn't sure what she expected, but it sure wasn't the cold reception he gave. She began to fear that Mike might ask them to leave. This would really hurt Lisa, who had just made new friends. That night, Beth slept poorly, tossing and turning, wondering what tomorrow would bring. The next morning, I started my usual routine with a cup of coffee and then went for a jog. I decided I had to keep things businesslike with Beth. Keeping distance from other women had been easy before, but having Beth live in my home was different. There was no way to avoid contact. After my run, I found Lisa and her mother in the kitchen, just like yesterday. "Morning, ladies," I said as I walked in. "Good morning, Mr. Mike," giggled Lisa. Morning, Mike," muttered Beth. I noticed Beth looked tired, as if she hadn't slept well. "Just gonna shower and then we'll be back down," I said, heading out of the kitchen. While showering, I wondered if something was bothering Beth. Being a typical guy, I didn't realize it was because of my actions last night. I decided to let her tell me in her own time. I finished my shower and went back to the kitchen, where my breakfast was waiting. I sat down and began to eat, glancing at Beth occasionally. She was barely picking at her food. I decided not to push her to tell me what was wrong. Instead, I waited until I finished eating. Beth, now that you've accepted my help, we need to get Lisa enrolled in school. Lisa's eyes widened. School? Yes, young lady, school. As I said this, I noticed Beth look up at me. Lisa then asked, Will I be going to the same school as Jeannie and Missy? Yes, sweetie, you will, but I can't promise you'll be in the same class. We'll have to wait and see. Oh, okay. I looked back at Beth and she was staring at me. What? I asked. Nothing. It's just... She trailed off. It's just what, Beth? No, it's nothing. You're right, Mike. Lisa does need to be in school. Having said that, Beth got up and started clearing the table. I stood and began to help her. I can do this, Mike, I said to myself, feeling ready for the talk. Lisa, why don't you go play outside with Susie and Toby for a bit? I suggested. Lisa looked at her mom, who nodded in agreement. As soon as Lisa closed the door, I asked Beth to sit down. Beth, since we'll be living together until you feel ready to leave, we should set some ground rules. First, I don't expect you to be my maid. I appreciate help, but I can do my share too. That means helping clean up after meals. Got it? Yes, Mike, she replied. Second, let's talk about sleeping arrangements. Beth's eyes widened, but I continued calmly. Right now, you and Lisa are sharing a room. There are 3 bedrooms downstairs. 2 are connected by a shared bathroom. If you and Lisa want separate rooms, you can choose any. It's up to you. Beth sighed in relief, realizing I wasn't suggesting anything awkward. My rooms are upstairs, and I'll take care of them. We'll share the downstairs areas. You and Lisa should keep your rooms clean. I'll respect your privacy and not enter them. For common areas, we'll all clean up after ourselves. Does that sound good? Yes, Michael, she said again, using my full name. It felt unexpectedly nice. My ex, Jenny, only used it when she was mad. Now we need to think about getting you a job so you and Lisa can be financially independent. Any ideas on what you want to do? I've worked as a cashier and waitress before, she told me. That's a start. Is that all you want to do, or are you aiming for more? Suddenly, Beth started crying. Oh no, tears. I never knew how to handle tears. I'd like a better job, but I only finished high school. No one would hire me for anything else, she said, her voice breaking. Feeling flustered, I softened my tone. Okay, Beth. Let me see what jobs are out there. We'll talk about it, okay? Beth nodded, wiping her tears. All right, let's clean up the kitchen, I suggested. We silently tidied up. Feeling guilty for making her cry, I excused myself to my office. Inside, I pondered what to do next. Making Beth cry had unsettled me. My past work experience with mainly men didn't help here. I needed to talk to Mel. I called my sister's daycare center and left a message for her to call me. To distract myself, I played Sudoku on my computer. After an hour, my phone rang. What's up, little brother? Need advice? What? Can't I just call my big sister because I love her? Cut the crap, Michael. I made Beth cry and I feel horrible, I admitted, and told her what happened. Mel gave me a reality check. Beth's not an employee. Be more sensitive. Then her tone softened. I'll take some time off tomorrow. I'll meet you at the school to register Lisa. The vice principal is a friend of mine and will help. After our call, I felt grateful for Mel. She had helped me many times since my divorce. I stayed in my office until lunch. At lunch, I invited them for sandwiches and soup. Lisa was excited, but Beth just nodded. Lunch was awkward with little conversation. I mentioned Mel meeting us at school, but Lisa noticed the tension. After lunch, I played more Sudoku in my office. Dinner was the same quiet affair, just different food. I cleaned up and went to bed without more conversation. I didn't know what to say. The next morning, I skipped jogging. Instead, I cooked breakfast. Beth seemed surprised when she walked into the kitchen. Our meal was quiet again, mainly answering Lisa's questions about her new school. After breakfast, we all got into my truck and went to meet Mel. My sister must have called her friend, the vice principal, the night before because they were quickly led into her office. I decided to stay in the waiting area and counted the ceiling tiles. About an hour later, the door opened, and my niece Jeannie came in. She saw me and ran over to give me a hug. I raised an eyebrow at her. Why are you being sent to the vice principal's office, young lady? Have you been causing trouble? Jeannie laughed and playfully slapped my arm. That's for me to know and you to find out, she said, before spinning around and going into the inner office. About 15 minutes later, Jeannie and Lisa came out holding hands. Lisa was excited. Mr. Mike, I'm going to be in Jeannie's class. She's going to show me what to do, she said. That's great, sweetie. I know Jeannie will take good care of you, I replied. Bye, Uncle Mike. Come on, Lisa. It's almost recess time. We're going to have so much fun, Jeannie said as she pulled Lisa out the door by the hand. Another 10 minutes went by before my sister and Beth came out of the vice principal's office. Mel walked over to me and said, Mike, Beth is coming with me to see where I work. I'll drop her off this afternoon on my way home. The way my sister said it, it was like a fact. I didn't feel like arguing. Both women left the office while I watched them go. Then I made my way out of the school and drove back home. On the drive, I thought about the situation and what I could do to fix it. One thing I knew was that things were awkward between Beth and me. If it kept on, I'd end up hiding in my own house. I decided right then that wasn't going to happen. It was my home, and I wouldn't let anyone push me to that point. Beth's perspective. Beth followed Mel to her car, feeling relieved. She had been very nervous about having to ride back home alone with Mike. Even when she and Mike had been alone in a room, Lisa had been nearby. She didn't really think Mike would harm her, but she still didn't fully trust him. The men in her life had either left her or hurt her, and she wondered if she could ever trust any man again. During the ride to the daycare center, Mel talked about the school. She told Beth about the academics, the extra activities, and the PTA. Beth was glad to hear that it was one of the better schools in the state. She really wanted Lisa to get a good education and hoped she could go to college, something Beth never had a chance to do. Beth was impressed with the daycare center. It was in a nice-sized building, with several rooms for different age groups. All the rooms were bright, clean, and cheerfully decorated. Each had toys and learning games suitable for the kids in that room. Mel gave Beth a tour, introducing her to the staff. These were Mel's employees. Beth noticed one room was empty and asked Mel about it. Mel explained that it was for older kids up to age 8, who came there after school until their parents picked them up. Beth saw that the lady in the room with the babies looked stressed out and offered to help change diapers and feed the babies. Mel smiled as she watched Beth. She could see Beth cared a lot for children. She thought offering Beth a job could be good for both of them. At lunchtime, Mel told her staff that she was taking Beth to lunch. They went to a nice little cafe nearby. After ordering, Mel brought up the idea of Beth working for her. Well, Beth, what did you think about the daycare center? Mel asked. Oh, I really liked it. You've done a great job making it a wonderful place for kids. I bet you get a lot of joy taking care of all those kids, Beth replied. Honestly, it can be very busy at times, and it's not the perfect job for everyone, but yes, I do love it. And I was impressed watching you with the babies today, Mel said, pausing to let her words sink in. I was wondering if you would come work for me. Beth's eyes widened. Mike told you to do this, didn't he? He thinks I can't get a job on my own. Mel smiled and reached across the table to pat Beth's hand. No, Beth. Mike didn't ask me to give you a job. He doesn't know anything about this, and I'm not doing it out of kindness either. One of my full-time employees had to leave town to take care of her mother, who had a stroke. The lady you met with the 3 to 4-year-olds agreed to help for a few days, but she doesn't want a full-time job. She just helps out when I'm short-handed. I've seen you with Lisa, and I saw you this morning helping the babies. If you're interested, I think you'd be great at the job, and I could really use the help. Beth's eyes softened. Mel, I don't know what to say. Beth, there's one more thing that might interest you. After school, my girls catch the bus and come to the center, so I get to keep an eye on them and spend more time with them. If you work for me, Lisa can ride with my girls and stay at the center until your shift is over. Beth was feeling grateful. Thanks, Mel. You don't know how much this means to me. Mel smiled. Even though he didn't have anything to do with it, I think Mike will be glad you found a job so quickly. Beth's smile faded. Yeah, Mike. I just hope I can stay long enough to get back on my feet. Mel looked worried. Okay, what's wrong? I don't think your brother is happy with me. I feel like he's mad about how much money we spent. Beth said. Beth, trust me, Mike isn't upset about that money. Why do you think he is? Well, after you left last night, he just came in and said he was going to bed. This morning he was polite but very businesslike. I think he regrets offering to help me and Lisa. If he's acting strange, it's got to be something else. Let me tell you about my brother. If you're staying at his home, you should know this. You and Mike have more in common than you think, said Mel. Beth looked puzzled. What could we have in common? He's rich, has a beautiful home, and a loving family. I'm homeless, broke, and all I have is Lisa, but I'm thankful every day for her. You both have been hurt by people you loved. When Mike was in high school, he really liked a girl. He thought they had a future until he found her with his best friend. Mike was so upset he joined the Marines right after graduation to get away. He served for 4 years, then came back and used the GI Bill to go to college. Mike studied plants and took care of lawns to help pay for school. He worked hard and people noticed. He got more requests than he had time for, so he hired help and built a small business. Around his junior year, he met Jenny. Beth saw anger in Mel's eyes at the mention of Jenny. Mel continued. Mike and Jenny dated until he graduated, then they got married. Later, Mike won the lottery but came home to find Jenny leaving him. Mike spent the first year building his house and needed time to get over Jenny. I started trying to get him to go out, but he refused. When he did join us, he made it clear to any woman that he wasn't interested. And believe me, a lot of women were interested. Mike is a good-looking man and wealthy, too. You both feel like you can't trust the opposite sex anymore, but he would never knowingly do anything to hurt you or Lisa. Beth nodded, thinking about what Mel had said. It didn't fully explain Mike's behavior, but it did help her see him differently. If he really was helping her and Lisa without expecting anything in return, then he was a very kind person. She acknowledged to herself that Mel's brother was indeed very handsome. After lunch, the two women went back to the center. Beth filled out her new employee papers and helped take care of the children. Lisa was overjoyed to ride the bus with her new friends Jeannie and Missy to the daycare center. She was even more excited when her mom told her she would be working there and they would ride the bus together every day. Around 5 in the afternoon, Mel called her brother. Meanwhile, Mike had decided not to go straight home after Mel left with Beth. Instead, he went to a cafe and met Jim Henley. They talked about the property Mike had bought from Jim. Jim was curious about the changes Mike had made. Mike invited him to see for himself, and Jim agreed. They finished their coffee and went to Mike's place. Jim was very impressed by all the improvements. He left around noon to have lunch with his wife. Back at home, Mike made a sandwich, grabbed some chips and a soda, and went to his office. After eating, he turned on his computer to do some work, but instead, he played Sudoku. After a couple of hours, he needed a break and took his dogs for a long walk. He returned a little after 4 and started getting ready to make dinner. I wanted to have dinner ready for Lisa after her first day of school. A little after 5, the phone rang. It was the daycare center. "Hi, sis," I said, picking up. "Hey, little brother, just wanted to let you know we would be headed home in a few minutes," said Mel. "All right, sis. See you soon." I went to the kitchen and started the sauce and put the noodles on. I was making spaghetti. I thought Lisa would like that. All kids liked spaghetti. Just as everything was finished, I heard Mel's car pull up. A minute later, the door opened, and I heard the chatter of females coming in. "I'm in here," I called out from the kitchen. I heard little feet running towards me and turned just in time to catch my nieces as they jumped on me. I gave each a quick kiss and looked over to see Lisa standing there, looking a bit shy. "Hey, sweetie, how was your first day of school?" Lisa's face lit up. "Oh, Mr. Mike, it was so much fun. Jeannie took me around and I met all her friends. They were so nice. I'm really going to like this school. And then I got to ride the bus with Jeannie and Missy to the daycare, and then Mama told me—" Before she could finish, Jeannie and Missy quickly said, "Shh, it's a secret, remember?" "Oh, yeah, but I did have a lot of fun," Lisa finished. I glanced over to see my sister, Mel, and her friend Beth come into the kitchen. Beth looked serious while Mel smiled at me. "Come on, girls," said Mel. "Your father will be home soon. Let's go get dinner ready." "Okay," the girls said together. I bent down and got my usual kiss on the cheek. Then they ran over to Lisa and hugged her. "See you tomorrow, Lisa." As they ran off to get in the car, I told Mel I would walk her out. I then told Beth and Lisa that dinner was ready if they wanted to wash up. I followed Mel outside. When we reached her car, I asked her, "What's this about a secret?" "Don't worry, Mike. If you are nice, Beth will tell you." "Oh, I see how it is. You won't keep secrets from George, but your brother doesn't count." "Ah, little brother, this isn't a secret about us. It's Beth's secret." "Yeah, whatever," I said, but with a smile on my face. I bent and kissed my sister on the cheek and returned to the house. Beth, Lisa, and I got back to the kitchen at the same time. "Do you like spaghetti, Lisa?" I asked. "Oh, yeah, Mr. Mike, I sure do," she said. "Then if you ladies will have a seat, I will bring it to the table." I had already set the table, so as Beth and Lisa took their seats, I drained the noodles and put them in a large bowl. I then poured the sauce into another bowl and carried both to the table. Lastly, I brought us all something to drink and took my place at the table. Beth fixed a plate for Lisa, then helped herself, and then I did likewise. We ate in silence for a while until Lisa couldn't take it any longer. "Mama, aren't you going to tell Mr. Mike the secret?" she finally blurted out. I looked at Beth with anticipation. She looked down at her plate. "I got a job today, Mike. I'm going to be working for your sister at the daycare center," she said. "Isn't that good, Mr. Mike?" chirped Lisa. This was totally unexpected. "Yes, that is very good." "Congratulations, Beth," I answered. Beth looked up at me with a questioning look. "Thank you, Michael." She could see the surprise on my face and knew Mel had told her the truth that I knew nothing about this. The rest of dinner went by with lively chatter about Lisa's first day at school. Beth helped me clean the kitchen with little said between us while Lisa went to the game room to watch TV. Once we were done, we went to join Lisa. I sat in my recliner watching the Disney Channel with Lisa while Beth sat on the couch reading. At 9, Beth got up and told Lisa they needed to get ready for bed. Lisa stood up and said, "Okay, Mama. Good night, Mr. Mike." "Good night, honey. Sweet dreams. Good night, Beth." "Good night, Mike," Beth said, leaving the room. After they left, I switched the TV to CNN and sat staring at the screen. I thought about the day's events, Lisa starting school and Beth getting a job. It was a big day for both of them. Even though I hadn't seen much of Beth today, I couldn't deny that I felt something when I did look at her. "Come on, man, you can't let her get to you. You'll just get hurt again." I turned the TV off and headed for bed, whispering "good night" as I passed their door. The next morning, I was up early as usual. I decided to skip my morning run and went to the kitchen to fix breakfast for the new schoolgirl and working woman. Beth looked surprised when she walked into the kitchen and saw me dishing up their plates. I put their plates on the table and brought Beth a cup of coffee and Lisa a glass of milk. My sister had told me she would swing by this morning and pick up Beth and Lisa, so I didn't have to worry about taking them in. I wished both ladies a nice day and took off for my morning run, telling Beth to leave the dishes and I would clean up when I got back. Of course, when I got back, I found the kitchen spotless and the house empty. Mel had already picked up Beth and Lisa. I came in and decided to have a bowl of cereal. While I ate, I thought about Beth and Lisa needing a way to get around. Even though it wasn't far, I didn't want my sister to have to drive them every day. I finished eating, went upstairs, and got ready to go out. An hour later, I was walking around a car lot looking. It was the same place where I bought my truck. The salesman who sold me my truck saw me and came out to greet me. He asked if there was anything wrong with my truck. I told him no, but I would like to find a nice used car for someone special. I gave him a look to show I didn't want any tricks. An hour later, I finished my purchase and set up the delivery. Feeling good, I headed home. Around 3 in the afternoon, the car arrived. I had them park it in the driveway so Beth would see it when she got back. Inside, I felt pleased with how things were going. Lisa was in school, Beth had a job, and now she had a car. I planned to give her the keys when she got home. I felt pretty proud of myself. A couple of hours later, Mel's car pulled up. I went out to greet them. My sister noticed the car in the driveway. "Whose car is that, Mike? Are you having visitors?" No visitors. I realized Beth and Lisa needed a way to get around, so I bought it this morning for Beth." Beth stood there, her mouth open in shock. "Mike, you shouldn't have. You're already doing so much for us." "Beth, think about it. You're working and Lisa is in school. Do you really want to rely on someone else to take you everywhere?" I asked. "Well, no," she replied. "Thank you, Michael." I handed her the keys and asked if she wanted to take it for a drive. Lisa thought it was a great idea and pulled her mom along. As they drove off, my sister turned to me. "You're a good man, little brother." "Aw, shucks," I said. "I'm just being practical." My sister smiled, stood on her tiptoes, and kissed my cheek. She and her girls then left for home. I went back inside to wait for Beth and Lisa to return. At dinner, Lisa and Beth talked about their new car. They were excited to have a way to get around without depending on me or Mel. After dinner and cleaning up the kitchen, we all went to the game room. I sat in my chair, and Beth on the couch with a magazine. Sometimes I would glance at Beth and catch her looking at me, but she quickly looked back at her magazine. Each time our eyes met, I felt nervous. I tried to focus on the TV, but I couldn't help looking at Beth. Finally, at 9, Beth and Lisa went to bed. After putting Lisa to bed, Beth lay awake thinking about how much her life had changed. One day she was homeless, and now she had a beautiful house, a job, a car, and her daughter was in a good school. She also thought about Mike. When their eyes met, she felt butterflies in her stomach. She was confused by her feelings after everything she had been through. Thinking of Mike, she finally fell asleep. Mike. The next morning, I got up and found Beth in the kitchen making breakfast. She was excited to drive Lisa to school and herself to work in her new car. While eating, I told Beth that it was the weekend I watched my nieces so their parents could have some alone time. Beth blushed slightly at the phrase, alone time. Lisa, on the other hand, was excited. "You mean Jeannie and Missy are going to spend the night?" she asked eagerly. "Yep, they will spend tonight and tomorrow night here," I told her. "Yippee!" yelled Lisa. My sister had called to ask if I still wanted to have the girls over, and I assured her I did. I knew Lisa would love a slumber party, and Beth would enjoy a girls' night. When they returned that afternoon, the girls were excited. It was clear they were going to have fun. Even Beth was in a good mood. I cooked my famous burgers, and after dinner, I excused myself to give the girls space. From my office, I could hear their squeals and laughter. Beth's laughter made me smile. I was glad she was having fun. The next morning, I asked the girls at breakfast if they enjoyed their night. They replied with big grins and excited nods. After breakfast, the girls went outside to play. Beth and I cleaned the kitchen and then went out to the deck to watch them. We didn't talk much, but often glanced at each other. After a while, I thought Beth might want some time alone, so I excused myself and went to the game room to watch TV. Around noon, I heard the sound of little feet rushing in. "Uncle Mike, we're hungry," said Missy, climbing into my lap. "I bet you are," I said. "What do you think I should do about that?" "Feed us!" Missy exclaimed, hugging my neck. Laughing, I stood up, tossing Missy over my shoulder. "All right, come on, let's make lunch." We decided on sandwiches and chips. Beth helped me make everything. As we finished lunch, Jeannie asked, "Uncle Mike, can we go swimming in your pool, please?" "Sure, it's warm enough today," I said. "Lisa, do you have a swimsuit?" "Oh, yeah, Mr. Mike. Mom and I bought new ones when we went shopping. Put yours on too, Mom, and come swim with us." Beth looked flustered and blushed. I could tell she felt shy about wearing a swimsuit in front of me. I asked her, "Beth, can you swim?" She nodded, so I said, "I need to do some work in my office. Would you mind going with the girls and keeping an eye on them?" "Sure," she replied. There wasn't much to clean up, so I told them to go change, and I would handle the kitchen. Just as I finished, the girls came out with towels, heading for the pool. Beth wore a cover-up that only came halfway down her thighs. As she walked by, I noticed she had great legs. While the girls had fun in the water, I went upstairs to work on the computer. I could hear their laughter through the window. After about 45 minutes, I stepped out onto the second-story deck overlooking the backyard and pool. I saw Beth getting out of the pool and walking to one of the loungers. She wore a modest yellow one-piece swimsuit that made her legs look long. I hadn't seen her in such little clothing before. It was clear she had a well-proportioned body. As she walked, water streamed down her body. She was quite a sight. She reached the chair, took a towel, and wiped herself off before sitting. Then she began to apply sun lotion to her legs. Suddenly, I looked down at the front of my pants and saw my embarrassment. I quickly stepped back into the house. It had been over 2 years since I was with a woman, and seeing Beth had sparked feelings in me. I needed to calm down. I went to the bathroom, started the shower, and stepped in. Reaching for the soap, I tried to relax. I felt ashamed for not controlling my feelings for Beth, who lived in my home. I knew she wouldn't have any feelings for me because of her distrust in men. If she noticed, she might leave with her daughter, breaking the trust she had in me. I got out of the shower, dressed, and stayed in my office until dinner. I joined the girls to eat but tried not to look at Beth, afraid she would see my guilt. After dinner, I told them to continue with their slumber party and hurried back to my room. I went to bed early but struggled to sleep, thinking of Beth's image. Sunday morning, I woke up early, put on my jogging suit, and went for a long run, hoping it would clear my mind. When I returned, the girls were finishing breakfast. They told me they saved me a plate. I thanked them and said I would join them after a shower. 20 minutes later, I was having breakfast alone while the girls went to the game room. After I finished, I joined them. At first, I enjoyed watching the girls play. Beth sat on the couch reading as usual. From time to time, I couldn't help but glance at her. She wore a new sundress, and I couldn't help but think of her in the swimsuit. Despite my best efforts, I felt my body react. Not wanting to embarrass myself, I mumbled something about going to the bathroom and hurried upstairs. Once in my bedroom, I tried to calm down. Beth was sitting on the couch reading when Mike entered the game room. As usual, Mike sat in his recliner. She saw he enjoyed watching the girls play. She couldn't help but steal glances at him. Mike had showered and wore a tight t-shirt showing his muscular build. He wasn't too big, but just right. She wondered what it would feel like to be held by those strong arms. Beth was puzzled by her own thoughts. She shouldn't be thinking like this. She tried to focus on her reading but noticed Mike looking. Suddenly he mumbled something and hurried out. Her eyes followed him and she gasped. Was he reacting like that because of her? The thought made her feel a stir of emotions she couldn't ignore. She tried to dismiss it but couldn't help thinking about it. Beth needed to act quickly before the stain ruined her dress. She told the girls she was going to take a bath and would stay here. The girls just nodded and went back to their game. Beth hurried to her room, locking the door behind her, then did the same in the bathroom. She quickly filled the tub, undressed, and slid into the water. She tried to calm down but kept thinking about Mike. Her hands moved on their own and she felt a mix of emotions. She soon got out of the bath and dressed up, trying to push her thoughts aside. Meanwhile, Mike was also dealing with his own thoughts. He cleaned up and changed his shirt, hoping no one would notice. He went back downstairs and saw that Beth was no longer in the room. He wondered where she went but didn't think too much about it. Beth returned a little while later, looking a bit flushed but relaxed. She mentioned taking a bath and sat down. Mike, feeling more relaxed himself, glanced at her occasionally, especially at her legs. Just then, Mel arrived to pick up the girls. They all sat down on the couch and chatted briefly. Mike pointed out that Beth had been the one looking after the girls while he was upstairs. Mel appreciated their help, and after a short while, she and the girls left. Lisa then asked Beth if they could go swimming again, and if Mike could join them this time. Beth turned to Mike. "Well, I'm up for it if you are," he said. Beth agreed, though she was a bit hesitant. They all got ready for the pool. Mike reached the pool area first and waited for Beth and the girls. When they arrived, Mike opened the gate and let them in. He noticed Beth looking at him as he walked back to his chair. Ever since his days in the Marines, he kept in good shape and wondered if she noticed. Beth wore a cover-up over her swimsuit. Mike put on sunglasses to keep an eye on her without being too obvious. Lisa jumped into the pool right away, while Beth took her time removing her cover-up and laying her towel on a lounger. After a few minutes of soaking up the sun, Beth joined them in the pool. They played with a volleyball, and Mike enjoyed the feeling of family that came with their time together. He knew he would miss them when they were gone. Beth was the first to get tired and said she was getting out of the water. She swam to the side near the loungers and climbed out, leaving Mike to play with Lisa a bit longer. Mike couldn't help but feel a strong connection to her as he watched her from the pool. As she stood up, she kneeled down a bit and I could see clearly between her legs. I almost gasped because I thought I could see the outline of her private area through the wetsuit. I felt myself getting aroused, so I quickly threw the ball to Lisa and swam to deeper water to hide it. About 15 minutes later, Beth told Lisa that we needed to get out of the pool for dinner and to prepare for bed since tomorrow was a school day. We went inside, changed clothes, and had a quick dinner. While we were eating, Lisa asked her mom if she could sleep in the room that Jeannie usually stayed in. She said she wanted her own room like Jeannie and Missy had at their house. At first, Beth didn't want to agree, but eventually gave in. After dinner, we gathered in the game room until bedtime. Tonight, I didn't stay up after they went to bed. I went straight to my room, took off my clothes, and got into bed. After putting Lisa to bed, Beth went to her room to get ready for sleep. She had been unsure about letting Lisa sleep alone, but then felt it was silly to worry. She knew that no matter what, Mike would never harm Lisa. Beth slipped into her bed and thought about the afternoon. Mike had stood by the gate for her, and she had gotten her first good look at most of his body. He had a nicely shaped upper body, a firm backside, and well-toned legs from jogging. As she thought about this, she felt a warm feeling in her body. She remembered how she couldn't stop looking at him while he played with Lisa. She had to get into the pool because she felt herself getting too excited and didn't want him to notice. Beth's hands moved down her body, and she lifted her nightgown. She remembered getting out of the pool and feeling embarrassed because she thought Mike had seen her too clearly. She had looked back and knew he had been watching her. Then she noticed he seemed excited too, and she was sure of it. Beth let out a sigh as she settled back into her bed, her feelings calming down. She giggled at the thought that maybe it was a good thing Lisa had her own room now. Soon she drifted off to sleep. Mike, as I got into bed, I started thinking about the pool earlier. Beth had taken off her cover-up and then bent over. Oh man, I thought, remembering how amazing she looked. When she reached for the ball, her body moved in a way that was so tempting. My hand moved faster as I thought about her. When she got out of the pool and bent over, I could see through the wet material, imagining more. I wanted to be close to her, to touch her and make her feel good. With these thoughts, I felt myself reaching the climax again. Then I fell asleep, still holding on to the feelings. I woke up the next morning with dried mess on me. I laughed, recalling what had happened. I took a quick shower and went to the kitchen where I found Beth humming while cooking. Lisa was at the table watching her mom. "Good morning, ladies," I said as I walked in. "Good morning, Mr. Mike," replied Lisa. "Good morning, Mr. Mike," echoed Beth, causing Lisa to giggle and me to chuckle. Breakfast was more relaxed today, though there was still a hint of something between Beth and me. After breakfast, Beth and Lisa went to school and work. I went for a jog and then worked out in the gym. For lunch, I went to a cafe in town and enjoyed some soup and salad. We had dinner and then headed to the game room. Tonight, Lisa wanted to play a board game and Beth and I joined her, which made her very happy. Then it was bedtime for them. The rest of the week passed in a similar way. Beth and I got along better as we had more time to understand each other. I even found she had a good sense of humor when she let it show. But still, there was some tension. I knew I wanted Beth, and I assumed she still didn't trust men. I especially liked when Lisa wanted to play games with us. We'd sit on pillows on the floor. Not only could I talk to Beth more, but since she wore dresses, I could sneak a look at her legs while pretending to focus on the game. The next weekend, George and I went fishing while Mel, Beth, and the kids went shopping and then hung out at my pool. I gave Beth a credit card for groceries and anything she and Lisa needed. Even though she was still cautious about spending money, I think she realized it was okay with me. Another week went by like the last one. Some nights we played games, other nights we watched TV with Lisa. Lisa was more open with me. Watching me with my nieces, she saw I was no threat. The first day she brought home a picture from school, I told her I had the perfect spot for it. I pinned it up in the kitchen with magnets so we could see it daily. I was kneeling when she said, "Thank you, Mr. Mike." Then she kissed my cheek and ran off giggling. I touched my cheek as if to keep the kiss there and looked at Beth, who smiled and followed her daughter. I got a Coke and sat at the kitchen table, thinking about how fast Lisa was adapting to her new life. That kiss told me she was beginning to trust me. I wished her mother would, too. I told Beth her paychecks would go into a bank account and I would cover expenses for now. This was the fastest way for her to save enough to be financially independent, which I figured would take 2 or 3 months. If she wanted to move out before then, I would cover her rent until she was ready. Another week passed and it looked like rain all weekend. On Saturday, Mel, Beth, and the girls went shopping for the week. I spent the day catching up on Sudoku. That night, Mel and Beth took the girls to see a Disney movie. I stayed home doing crosswords. Beth did laundry on Sunday while I played games with Lisa. Then it was Monday, the start of another school and work week. Another week passed. We'd settle into a comfortable routine, games some nights and TV on others. The girls did their homework at daycare, so we didn't worry about it at home. It was like having my own family, but without the extras, if you know what I mean. My feelings for Beth were deepening. I still liked her, but I was also starting to see what a wonderful person she was. Being with her helped me forget the past and my ex-wife's betrayal. I was beginning to heal, but it was hard because I wasn't sure if Beth trusted me. Another change I noticed was my dogs adored Lisa. She was gentle with them. They lay next to her while she watched TV and slept in her bed. For Beth, the 2 weeks after the pool day flew by. She loved her new job and taking care of the kids. Having Mel as her boss was great, and their friendship grew. Things with Mike were better, too. She felt he didn't regret helping her and Lisa. She liked their evenings together, especially playing games. She often wore dresses because she knew Mike liked looking at her legs. She started to see Mike as more than just someone who saved her. He was funny, kind, and caring. She appreciated that he was always respectful. He never made inappropriate comments and was great with Lisa, who was responding well to him. At least for now, Lisa had a positive male role model, unlike her father. Beth's feelings for Mike were growing. He had come at her darkest moment and gave her hope. It was a shame he couldn't fully trust women. It was Friday, 3 weeks after Beth started her job, when my sister called me at work. "Hey, baby brother, how's your day going?" I was researching charities. "Pretty good, sis, and yours?" "Real good, no crises yet. Listen, George and I want to take you and Beth out to dinner tomorrow night. It's been a long time since you went out with us. We have a sitter for the kids, and you can bring Lisa over here." "What do you say?" "Well, I don't know, sis. I mean, Beth." Mel cut me off. "I've already talked to Beth, and she's excited about the idea. It's been a long time since she's been out." "Well, I guess I'm outvoted then," I said. "What time do you want us over?" 6 would be great. See you tomorrow, Mike." With that, she hung up, and I was left to think about going out with Beth. Well, we wouldn't be going out with each other. We were just going to dinner with my sister and brother-in-law. I knew my sister and Beth had become friends, and since Beth was living at my house, it made sense she'd be invited too. It wasn't like my sister was trying to set me up on a date. Beth didn't mention going to dinner when she came home that night. The only thing she said was that she and Mel were going shopping in the morning and asked if I could watch Lisa. I told her I would never have a problem watching Lisa and that I could ride with her to my sister's house, so Lisa could play with my nieces while George and I hung out. That night we played board games. Beth wore a dress shorter than usual. A few times, when she tried to get comfortable, I caught glimpses of her underwear. I nearly jumped out of my skin thinking about it later that night. When Beth went to bed that night, she was really excited. It had been a long time since she had gone out, and she looked forward to tomorrow night. Mel had told her they would find the perfect dress on Saturday morning. Feeling playful, she wore a shorter dress that night because she knew Mike liked to look at her legs. After dinner, she suggested playing games to Lisa, who was all for it. As they played, Beth fidgeted as if she wasn't comfortable, knowing Mike might see up her skirt. At one point, she thought his eyes would pop out of their sockets. She had to cover a laugh with a cough. When she got to bed that night, she couldn't believe she had been trying to tease Mike. Her excitement thinking about how naughty she had been was quite intense. The next morning, I got up at my usual time and headed to the kitchen. I made breakfast, and just as I was finishing, Beth and Lisa came in, still sleepy. After a cup of coffee, Beth seemed wide awake and in a great mood, laughing and joking. I figured she was really looking forward to going out tonight, and I planned to be on my best behavior so she'd have a good time. We got to my sister's house a little after 9, and the women took off, telling us they'd be back later. George and I were fine with that. We planned to watch sports while the girls played together. It was almost 4 when Mel and Beth returned. They had their hair done and looked like they had makeovers. My sister looked great, and I could see George admiring her. Beth came in behind her, looking just as stunning. I felt a stab of jealousy thinking about George's happy life. But I put on a smile and told both women how beautiful they looked. They both smiled warmly. Mel suggested leaving Lisa there for the night so Beth and I could go home and get ready. As soon as we got home, Beth disappeared into her room with her shopping bags. I went upstairs to shower, shave, and dress. I chose nice slacks, a light blue shirt, a dark tie, and a nice jacket, then waited for Beth. At 5:45, she came out of her room. When I saw her, my jaw dropped. She wore a little black dress, showing just enough to be attractive but not too much. To me, she looked like a goddess. Beth giggled at my reaction. "I take it you approve?" she asked. "Yes, I approve very much. You look amazing," I replied, hoping I hadn't said too much. Beth just giggled and said, "And you clean up quite well yourself." Hoping she didn't notice my reaction, I escorted her to my truck. When she got in, I saw enough of her legs to know she was wearing stockings. I felt a mix of desire and sadness, knowing she might not feel the same way about me, but I was determined to make sure she had a good time. We arrived at my sister's house at 6 and had a glass of wine before heading to the restaurant. We went to a fancy seafood place and got a circular booth. The women sat inside, with George next to Mel and me next to Beth. Dinner was great, and the company was better, but I noticed my sister glancing at me now and then. I didn't know why she was looking at me like that. I was being respectful and keeping up with the conversation. After dinner, my sister suggested going to a nice night spot nearby. They had a dance floor, and I knew my sister liked dancing with her husband. I let Beth decide what we should do since she was clearly having fun. Beth agreed right away, so we headed to the club. It was pretty crowded, but we found a table and ordered some drinks. My sister and her husband were off dancing in no time, leaving just Beth and me at the table. I wanted to ask Beth to dance, but was afraid she might say no. We chatted, and she said she was really enjoying herself. After a couple of dances, Mel and George came back to the table. As she passed me, Mel whispered in my ear, "Ask her to dance." We continued talking, and when the next song started, I asked Beth if she would like to dance. She quickly grabbed my hand and pulled me to the dance floor. So much for worrying about rejection. I thought I was a good dancer, but watching Beth was like watching a beautiful performance. The faster song gave me time to admire her. When the next song, a slow one, began, Beth moved into my arms before I could even ask. Holding her felt like a dream. After the dance, we went back to our table. I walked behind Beth, hoping no one would notice my excitement. We sat and talked some more before Mel and George went back to the dance floor. I took Beth's hand, and we danced 3 more fast songs before returning to the table. Beth said she needed to go to the ladies' room, so Mel, George, and I stayed and chatted. I soon needed to use the restroom, too, and excused myself. The restrooms were down a short hallway. As I turned the corner, I saw Beth against the wall, trying to push away a drunk guy. My anger surged. I marched down the hall, grabbed the guy by the neck, and shoved him against the wall. I was ready to hurt him for bothering Beth. As I raised my fist, Beth placed her hand on my arm. "No, Michael, he's not worth it." My anger started to fade. I leaned in and whispered to the guy, "I suggest you leave before you find out what a very angry Marine can do to you." He gasped an apology and hurried away. I turned to Beth, worried she might be scared of me now. She gently touched my cheek. "Thank you, Michael. You're my hero." Then she walked back to our table. I finished in the men's room and returned to the table, noticing both Mel and George knew what happened. They smiled at me warmly. Beth and I danced several more times before I went to get us one last round of drinks. As I made my way to the bar, a pretty redhead stopped me and started flirting. I was trying to politely get away when suddenly Beth and another woman stepped between us. "Back off, he's with me." I couldn't believe these words were coming from Beth. The redhead saw they were serious and quickly apologized. Mel said, "She was rude. She knows you're with us and still tried to flirt with you. It's insulting." "Sorry to ruin your fun, Michael," Beth said with a shy smile. "Well, I think they know not to mess with us," Mel said to Beth. "We'll be at the table when you get those drinks, Mike." The women walked back to the table, and I saw George chuckling. Getting back to the bar, I realized Beth's act was just that, an act. I knew she might freak out if she knew I had real feelings for her. There were no more incidents, and I returned with our drinks. The girls were still laughing about chasing off the redhead. "Since you saved me from that drunk, we thought we'd repay you the favor," giggled Beth, clearly playful from the drinks. "But if you want..." I can apologize and get her number for you. No, that's okay, I stuttered, knowing the only one I was interested in was Beth. We finished our drinks and decided to call it a night. We walked to the car, feeling good but not too drunk. George stayed sober all night since he was our designated driver. On the short ride back to Mel's house, the girls whispered and giggled in the back seat while I sat up front with George. We got back, checked on the kids, and let the babysitter go. The kids were all asleep in one room in sleeping bags. We quietly closed the door and went back to the living room. Mel brought wine for her and Beth while George and I had a beer. That last glass of wine made Beth doze off on the couch. It had been a long day, with shopping, dinner, and then the club. We decided to let the babysitter spend the night since it was late. Noticing Beth had fallen asleep, I whispered to Mel to bring a blanket. We gently laid Beth on the couch and covered her. I then left for home. At first, Mel wanted me to stay the night too, but I told her I had to get home to my dogs. It was only 2 miles, and there was no traffic in the country this late. Driving back, I thought about dancing with Beth. Holding her during the slow songs made me realize I loved her. It was tough because we lived together, and I couldn't have her. The longer she stayed, the more it would hurt when she and Lisa moved out. Maybe I should rent them a place now, pay a year's rent up front to give her time to save money and be independent. Beth. What a day it was for Beth. First, a shopping trip with Mel, finding the perfect dress and getting a makeover. Mike's face when he saw her was unforgettable. She felt butterflies in her stomach. Then getting into his truck, making sure he saw her stocking tops. Dinner at the restaurant was wonderful. It had been so long since she had been out, and no one had ever taken her to such a nice place. She envied her friend, seeing Mel and George's love for each other. At the club, slow dancing with Mike was even better than she imagined. His strong arms made her feel safe. She knew she was falling for him. Maybe she and Lisa should move out now. Otherwise, it would hurt more when Mike wanted them to leave. But for tonight, she closed her eyes, sipping her wine and remembering the feel of his arms around her. That was the last thing she remembered before waking up on Mel's couch the next morning, embarrassed. I woke up later than usual. Between the drinks and the late night, I needed the sleep. I skipped my morning run and went downstairs for coffee and cereal. Thinking about falling in love with Beth, I wasn't sure what to do. If I rented a place for Beth and Lisa, my sister might think I was kicking them out and I didn't want to upset her. I had no other family and didn't want to push her away. Even my nieces might be mad if they thought I was abandoning their friend Lisa. This needed careful thought. It was almost noon when Mel brought Beth home. She seemed embarrassed and apologized right away. "Oh, Mike, I'm so sorry for falling asleep like that," I laughed. "Don't worry, Beth. I know you had a long day. I hope you enjoyed the evening." "Yes, I did. It was wonderful. It's been so long since I went out, and that was the nicest restaurant I've ever been to." "Then it was worth it," I said. "I need to shower and change. Then I'll make some lunch," she said, as she headed to her room. Beth was still wearing the little black dress from last night. She looked as good now as when I first saw her in it. I wanted to tell her to wear it all day, but I knew she would call me a pervert and leave with Lisa. Besides, seeing her in that dress made me feel things I knew she wouldn't appreciate. I helped Beth in the kitchen and we made a quick lunch. Then she and Lisa went to meet Mel for the weekly grocery shopping. I didn't mind letting Beth handle this since she would buy the food they liked. They came back a little after 5, and by the time we put everything away, it was time for dinner. We watched some TV until Beth and Lisa went to bed. Tomorrow was Monday, the start of the school and work week. When Beth and Lisa got home Monday evening, we followed our usual routine, making dinner, eating, cleaning the kitchen, and then playing games with Lisa. Tonight, Lisa had a board game ready. We took our usual spots and started playing. I found it harder to concentrate. Not only was I looking at Beth's legs, but I kept staring at her lips. Those lips I wanted to kiss. It was getting harder not to tell her how I felt. Somehow I got through the week without saying anything. This weekend was another sleepover for my nieces. Friday evening I was making spaghetti, a favorite with the kids, when I heard the door open and the happy voices of the girls. They came running in with Beth trailing behind. I hugged and kissed Missy and then Jeannie. Before I could go back to cooking, little Lisa looked up at me. "Mr. Mike, can I have a hug too?" she asked in a sweet voice. My eyes filled with tears. This wonderful girl, who I would have been proud to call my own, wanted a hug too. "Of course, sweetie," I said, bending down to give her a big hug and a kiss on the cheek, just like my nieces. She giggled, happy as could be. "Thank you, Mr. Mike," she said. "Mike." She then turned and ran after my nieces to the game room. I saw Beth standing there with tears in her eyes. She stared at me. I got up quickly and turned back to the stove. I couldn't say anything because I was so emotional. Beth said she was going to wash up and then help with dinner. I could hear in her voice that she was also affected by Lisa's request. Beth came back and we called the girls to the table. During dinner, I saw Beth looking at me strangely. I didn't know what she was thinking. I just hoped it wasn't bad. After dinner, unlike last week, the girls wanted me to play games too. We all had a good time. I even made popcorn for them. When it was time for bed, my nieces came and kissed my cheek. This time, I wasn't surprised when Lisa did the same thing. I saw Beth give me that same strange look before helping the girls get ready for bed. I waited for a while watching the news, but Beth never came back. Her bedroom door was closed when I went upstairs. I hoped she wasn't too upset. I got up Saturday morning and everyone was still sleeping, so I went for a jog. I ran for an hour and a half, and when I came back, I heard the girls' faint voices as they were waking up. I hurried upstairs to shower and dress so I could get breakfast ready. When I got downstairs, I found Beth already in the kitchen. She seemed to have everything under control and told me to get a cup of coffee and sit down. I did as she said and sat at the table to watch her. At first, she faced away from me, focused on the stove. Finally, she turned and looked at me. She smiled. I took that as a good sign that she wasn't upset. A few minutes later, we heard the girls coming. They came in one by one, kissed my cheek, and said good morning before sitting down. This time I saw Beth smile a bit when Lisa kissed me on the cheek like my nieces did. Maybe this wasn't so bad. The girls wanted to go for a boat ride, so after calling George for permission, we went to the boat dock. I got everyone into life jackets and headed out of the cove to the main lake. Neither Beth nor Lisa had been on the boat yet. I could tell Lisa was excited, but Beth was nervous. She said she had never been on a boat before. After about 45 minutes, she was relaxed and enjoying herself. I thought if I could teach her to fish, she would be perfect for me. If only things were different and she felt the same way about me. The rest of the weekend was fun with Beth and the kids. On Sunday, my nieces went home, and another week started for the girls. Monday morning passed quickly for Beth. She and Mel went to the cafe for lunch, as they often did. Beth told Mel all about the weekend with the girls and how much she enjoyed the boat ride. Mel thanked her for taking care of her girls. She then offered to take Lisa for a weekend if Beth wanted some alone time. Beth thought about what Mel and George probably did on their weekends and whispered, "I wish." "What did you say?" asked Mel. Beth hadn't realized she had said that out loud. "Oh, nothing," answered Beth. Mel looked at Beth closely. "No, Beth, it wasn't nothing. You said I wish. Do you wish you could have weekends like George and I?" Beth's eyes went wide. "That's it, isn't it? And I don't think you would feel that way unless you had someone in mind. Do you have feelings for Mike?" Beth stared at Mel, wondering if it was that obvious. She wanted to talk about how she felt, but Mel was Mike's sister. She was afraid Mel would be angry and she would lose her friend, but she had to tell someone. Tears started to flow from her eyes. "I'm sorry, Mel, but yes, I do. I didn't mean for it to happen, but I couldn't help it. And now I don't know what to do." "Don't be sorry, Beth. This is wonderful," said Mel with excitement. "How can this be wonderful? You told me yourself that your brother couldn't trust a woman, so how can falling for a man like that be a good thing?" asked Beth. "Listen to me. When you came to Mike's house a month and a half ago, how did you feel about men?" "I thought I would never be able to trust or love a man again," answered Beth. "Okay, one more question. Think about it and be honest. If Mike loved you and wanted you and Lisa to be part of his life, could you love him back, be true to him, be open with him, and most importantly, trust him?" Beth stared at Mel, searching for the honest answer. She knew she was no longer the same person she was 6 weeks ago, afraid and without hope. Mike had changed that. The answer was clear. "Yes, Mel, I could. I do love him. But what's the point? We both know it's a one-way street. You are very wrong." I know my brother better than he knows himself. 6 weeks ago, he couldn't trust a woman. But you changed that, Beth. My brother is in love with you. I see it in his eyes every time he looks at you. He's afraid to tell you, afraid you might panic and run. Beth, you two need each other, you the love of a good man, and he the love of a good woman, and I think you are that woman. I never liked or trusted his ex-wife. I was scared she might do something bad, and she did. But I have seen how much you love your daughter and how well you take care of the kids at the center. I know it's real, and I know Mike cares a lot about Lisa, too. If he could, he would raise her as his own child. I believe deep inside you know my brother would never hurt you or Lisa. Not in any way. Beth felt relieved now that it was all out in the open. What should I do? I want your brother to love me. I want to be with him. I think we just need to give him a little nudge. Mike, over the weekend, my bond with Lisa changed. Now, when she comes down for breakfast, she kisses my cheek. She gives me another kiss before she leaves for school. And when she gets home, she runs to find me with her arms wide open so I can hug her and kiss her cheek again. Before bed, I get one more kiss. With each kiss, my love for this little girl grew, and I wished I could be the father she deserved. When Beth came home Monday evening, I sensed a change in her too. I knew nothing about her chat with my sister, but she wasn't the same as she was last week. She would look for me to talk and look into my eyes. Before this, she often looked down. That evening, she said she wanted to play Monopoly. After dinner, Lisa ran to set up the game while Beth and I cleaned the kitchen. Beth then said she needed to go to her room and would meet us in the game room. When she came in, she had changed into a shorter skirt. Her long legs caught my eye. As she sat down, I caught a glimpse up her skirt and saw her blue underwear. I quickly put a pillow in my lap to hide my reaction. Beth just gave me a mysterious smile. I was struggling to focus. Was she teasing me? Throughout the game, she kept shifting in her seat, and each time I could see up her skirt. When it was bedtime, I felt like she was watching as Lisa put the game away, making sure her back was to us. She gave me a final, lingering look. Tuesday morning, I woke up with vivid memories of the previous night. I took a shower and changed my sheets. That night, we watched TV instead of playing games. Beth talked with me. It was nice, even though I didn't get to see anything more. Wednesday was similar to Tuesday. We watched TV and talked. But Thursday evening, Beth wanted to play games again. I felt there was more to her words, play games. She went to her room and came back wearing a short skirt. As she sat down, I saw right through her sheer panties. I could see everything. She had a small strip of hair at the top and nothing else. My reaction was intense. She gave me more glimpses that night. Beth watched us as Lisa got ready for bed, making sure her back was to us. She gave me a long, parting view. After they left the room, my pants were soaked and I couldn't move. Lisa gave me a kiss on the cheek and said goodnight, and Beth did the same. Her lips on my cheek felt like fire. Before leaving, she looked into my eyes. I will see you tomorrow, Michael. The way she said my name was so special. It made me feel both hot and cold inside at the same time. As soon as her door closed, I ran to my room. I couldn't resist any longer. I cleaned up and lay down, still thinking about Beth. I decided I needed to talk to my sister to see what she thought. Friday morning, I woke up as usual, put on my jogging suit, and went downstairs. Beth was already there, finishing breakfast. Lisa came in next, gave me a kiss on the cheek, and said, "Good morning, Mr. Mike." Beth set Lisa's plate down and then brought hers to the chair next to mine. Before sitting, Beth leaned over, kissed my cheek, and said, "Good morning, Mr. Mike." Lisa giggled, seeing the look of confusion on my face. Before they left for the day, both girls gave me a kiss on the cheek again. If Lisa hadn't been there, I would have taken Beth in my arms and kissed her with all my heart. The next couple of hours, I sat in my office feeling confused. What was going on? Just before lunch, my phone rang. It was Mel's home phone. I was surprised when George greeted me. He said he took the day off to work on a project at home and asked if I could help. I agreed quickly, needing a break from my jumbled thoughts. George was installing new baseboards in a few rooms. It wasn't a hard job, but it was easier with an extra pair of hands to hold the long boards. Just before 5, George called it a day. I headed home, wondering what the evening had in store with Beth and Lisa. When I got home, I was surprised to see Beth's car in the driveway. She was usually home half an hour later. Inside, I smelled delicious food cooking. Beth called from the kitchen, telling me to go upstairs, take a shower, and meet her in the dining room. We usually ate in the kitchen. I followed her instructions, curious about her plan. After showering and getting dressed, I went to the dining room. The table was set with lit candles in the center. I sat down and waited to see what would happen next. Beth soon walked in with 2 plates of food. She took my breath away, wearing the little black dress she wore last Saturday. She asked me to open a bottle of wine. Noticing the wine bucket, I did as she asked. Even though I wasn't an expert, I knew the wine wasn't cheap. I pulled out the chair for Beth, and after she sat down, I took my place. Before eating, I asked, "Where's Lisa?" "She's spending the night with your nieces. It's just you and me for a grown-up evening," she said. The way she said, "grown up," made me wonder about her plans. The meal was delicious, and our talk was fun and lively. Beth cleared the dishes, and we moved to the living room to chat for another hour. Then she told me she had turned on the hot tub and suggested I change into my swimsuit. I rushed upstairs, excited by the thought of seeing Beth in her swimsuit. But when I came back, she was still dressed. "Are you going to change and join me?" I asked. "Yes, I have my suit on under my dress," she said as she turned to lead the way. "Don't forget to bring the wine," she called back. I grabbed the bottle and glasses and followed, slowing down to watch her walk. Her dress swayed with each step. At the hot tub, I opened the gate for her. She told me to get in first. I slid into the warm water and watched as she untied the bow holding her dress. Slowly, she unwrapped it. My heart raced. Instead of the yellow one-piece swimsuit she had worn before, she had on a tiny bikini, just strings and small cloth strips. When she turned to hang her dress over the fence, I groaned loudly. The bikini had almost no back, just a string between her beautiful cheeks. She turned around when she heard my groan. "What's wrong, Mike? Don't you like my suit?" "Oh, Beth, I like it. I like it very much." "I hoped you would," she giggled as she slipped into the water. For the next 20 minutes, we talked lightly. I made no secret of watching her in the bubbling water. She made sure to keep her chest high enough for me to enjoy. Suddenly, she took a deep breath and went underwater. The only lights were within the hot tub. Through the bubbles, I saw her coming toward me. Then we put on robes, and she said she wanted to make breakfast for me. Her words made me feel proud. I followed her and watched her move around the kitchen. She would look at me and smile. I sat drinking my coffee. After breakfast, she sat on my lap and kissed my face softly. I slid my hand up her legs and inside her robe. She was warm. "So, did I make you my woman?" I asked. "Oh, yes, my darling, I am your woman," she said, breathing heavily. "Good, because there is something I've always wanted to do with my woman." I lifted her and put her on the table, pushing her legs apart and stepping between them. I moved slowly at first, enjoying how it felt. She was shaking with excitement. Soon, she started asking for more. Moments later, she began to yell, "Yes, more, please!" She continued to ask for more loudly. Finally, I couldn't wait any longer. "Come with me, my love. Feel me inside you." She screamed and started shaking as I finished, then collapsed on the table. This time, I was sure she had passed out. I gently picked her up and held her in my arms. She woke up and started to cry, and I worried I had hurt her. "My love, please don't cry. Did I hurt you?" She sniffled, tears still falling. "No, Michael, I'm just so happy. I never knew it could be like this." I began to laugh softly. "Oh, you wonderful woman, I love you so much." We spent the next hour holding each other. Finally, we got up and cleaned the kitchen, hugging and kissing in between. We then walked to the game room and sat together on the couch. "What time is Lisa coming home?" I asked. "She is staying with your sister for another night. We have all day and all night just for us." "Oh, great," I said, tickling her. She laughed, and when I stopped, she playfully hit my arm, saying, "Stop that. Be good to your woman." I laughed. "I intend to be very good to you." She looked me in the eyes and kissed me deeply. "I just have to ask, when we played games and you wore those short skirts?" She blushed and giggled. "Yes, Michael, I knew exactly what I was doing. I wanted you to take me and make me yours, but like a clueless man, you made me do all the work. My love, I admit it. I was afraid of doing anything that might scare you away." "I know, darling. And I love you even more for it. I knew you wouldn't hurt me just to satisfy yourself. I must admit, I did desire you. I always will. But know this, woman, I love you. I told Beth that I had to go to the bathroom. On my way back, I heard her talking on the phone. Oh my God, Mel, it is so much more than I ever imagined. I loved him yesterday, but today it's 10 times more. If I had known how great he was, I would have gone to him sooner. Beth giggled. Yes, Mel, I know he's your brother. I won't go into details, but he's mine now, and I will do whatever it takes to keep him. And Mel, thank you for guiding me to him. I will always be grateful. I made a noise to let her know I was coming in. Beth looked up. Here he is. Would you like to speak to him? She handed me the phone. It's your sister. Hey, sis, how are you? I listened to my sister, then replied, Take good care of her? Who? I teased, giving Beth a wink. Beth? The Beth that lives here? Well, I did pick her up off the side of the road and gave her a place to live, so I guess you could say I'm taking care of her. This earned me a playful hit on the arm. I chuckled and moved the phone away from my ear as my sister began to yell at me. Finally, she calmed down. Mel, I love Beth with all my heart. I will do anything I can to make her and her daughter feel loved and safe. And now, if you don't mind, I'd like some alone time with my woman. With that, I hung up the phone. Beth started laughing. She jumped into my lap and kissed me fiercely. Oh, my love, I hope you hold me often. I growled playfully. Every chance I get, my love, every chance I get. That earned me another deep kiss. God, I loved this woman. Well, is there anything you want to do today other than be held? I asked with a chuckle. I want to go out on the boat, she answered. The boat? I asked. Yes, just you and me. So off we went. Beth packed a picnic lunch to take with us. This time, she wasn't nervous. Once we were on the main lake, she told me to go fast, and she held on tightly as we raced down the lake. I knew of a couple of places on the lake that were often free of other boats and pulled into one, only to find another boat there. I pulled out and found a quiet spot. Beth set out the lunch she brought, and we fed each other. When we had packed away the food, Beth looked at me and smiled. Stand up, she said. What? I asked. Stand up, I want dessert now. I stood up, curious about what she had in mind. There we were, just the two of us, enjoying the day together. We both reached our peak together, feeling like one. When we calmed down, we realized we weren't alone. Another boat was nearby, and people were clapping. One woman on the boat said, That was incredible. If she ever gets tired of you, send you our way. Beth stood confidently, despite the situation. Ladies, the only way you're getting him is over my dead body, she declared, earning more applause. The women laughed and drove away. Beth burst into laughter, too. I pulled her into my arms. My love, you have nothing to worry about, I told her. Good answer, she said, and gave me a passionate kiss. We got dressed and headed back to the dock. At home, we had a salad for dinner and then went to bed. As we lay together, I asked Beth about what would happen when Lisa came back. She usually goes to bed before us and wakes up later, so it shouldn't be a problem, Beth answered. But even if she finds out, is it a problem for you? Not at all. I just don't want to hurt her, I replied. Beth kissed me again. We'll handle it as best as we can, she said. You've stolen not only my heart, but hers, too. She's never been so open with anyone. We were both tired, but we made love slowly, enjoying our deep connection. Then we fell asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, we woke up and made love again. After breakfast on the deck, we missed Lisa and decided to pick her up. We called Mel to let her know we were on our way. As we walked to the truck, Beth got in, giving me a mischievous look that revealed she wasn't wearing any underwear. I groaned. If you keep doing that, I won't be able to think straight. Beth giggled. Would that be so bad? Only if it hurts, I joked. She slid over to snuggle against me. As we drove, her hand moved up my leg, rubbing me through my pants. After a bit, I said, I can't get out of the truck like this. If you pull over, I can help with that, she said with a wicked grin. Then I remembered a quiet road nearby and headed there. I headed to the end of the road and turned off the engine. Well, since you caused the issue, it's only fair you fix it, I said. She laughed and replied, With pleasure. Now get out of the truck. I got out and she followed. Standing in front of me, she dropped to her knees. Beth undid my button, pulled down my zipper, and tugged my pants down. She started stroking me and looked into my eyes. "You know what to do," Beth said. In one motion, she took me into her mouth. After a few moments, I placed my hands on her head and began to move. She made sounds of enjoyment. It didn't take long. Soon, I told her I was close. She adjusted so I could finish in her mouth. She swallowed and then stood up, falling into my arms. "That tastes so good. I can't get enough," she whispered. I lifted her face and looked into her eyes. "Well then, I guess we'll make sure you get plenty," I told her. Beth laughed and pulled me in for a kiss. I offered to return the favor, but she said if we showed up smelling like each other, everyone would know. It made sense, so we got back in the truck and continued to my sister's house. We arrived at my sister's place and walked hand in hand to the house. Halfway there, the door flew open and an excited Lisa ran out to greet us. She hugged her mom and started talking about her day. My nieces followed behind, and I bent down to hug and kiss them. Beth finally managed to speak. "Well, honey, I'm glad you had fun. Did you miss me even a little?" she asked. Lisa gave her a big kiss. "Of course I missed you, Mama." "And did you miss me too?" I asked. Lisa giggled and held her arms out to me. I took her from Beth and gave her a hug and kiss. My sister called us inside. With Lisa still in my arms, I took Beth's hand and we went inside together. Beth looked very happy seeing Lisa comfortable with me. We chatted with George and Mel. My sister seemed very pleased as she looked between Beth and me. I could tell she was happy for us. After my last relationship, I was relieved she approved. I knew she wouldn't stay quiet this time if something was wrong. Beth had never asked for anything and was grateful for what I gave her. I knew she wasn't with me for my money. We spent the rest of the day playing with Lisa. We went swimming in the pool in the afternoon. Beth wore a modest bikini this time. We tossed a ball around, and Beth gave me a quick kiss on the lips. Lisa smiled at us, which was a relief. After dinner, we played a board game. Beth wore a short skirt but no underwear. I kept checking the time, eager for Lisa's bedtime. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy her company, but Beth was driving me crazy with her teasing. Finally, it was time to put Lisa to bed. She wanted me to help tuck her in. When Beth and I were alone in our room, I could barely contain my excitement. I quickly undressed her and laid her on the bed. My mouth sought her out like a starving man. As she climaxed, she buried her face in a pillow to stifle her screams. Afterward, I slid up next to her and held her. "Oh, Michael, you made me feel so good. I never knew it could be like that." I smiled and replied, "I hope it's as good as what you do for me." "More than that," Beth said, as her hand reached down to touch me. "What are you going to do with this?" "Actually, I thought you might want to get on top," I said. I would love that." Beth positioned herself above me, took me in her hand, and slowly lowered herself down. We moved together until we both found release, her biting her lip to keep quiet. She collapsed onto my chest and I held her. Knowing she had to work the next morning, I cleaned her up and tucked us in for the night. In the morning, we got up early and showered quickly. I told Beth to help Lisa get ready for school while I made breakfast. Lisa came into the kitchen dressed for school and ran over to give me a hug and kiss. We sat down to eat breakfast. I felt like we were a real family. Everything was normal until Lisa spoke up. "So, Mom, does Mr. Mike snore?" I almost choked on my eggs and looked at Beth with wide eyes. She just laughed and patted Lisa's hand. "No, honey, he doesn't. And don't be so curious," Beth said, winking at me. Lisa giggled and said, "Okay, Mom. I'm just glad you won't have to kick him out of bed." Beth gasped and said, "Lisa." Lisa giggled again and went back to eating her breakfast. I couldn't help but laugh, too. Beth pointed her fork at me and said, "Don't you encourage her, mister." Then she winked and returned to eating. Kids grow up so fast these days. I thought about how Lisa probably heard things from her cousins. Maybe she thought her mom and I were doing the same things. I hoped she didn't know much about what adults do. There was plenty of time for that later. But she seemed fine with her mom and me sharing a bed, which was a relief. I had worried about how she might react. We finished breakfast, and I saw my girls off, then wandered around, waiting for them to come back. The rest of the week, we spent our evenings with Lisa, then hurrying to our bedroom for some quiet time together. As a family, we were getting closer every day. I knew I didn't want to be apart from Beth and Lisa. By Thursday, I knew what I wanted to do, but I needed to ask Lisa something first. After dinner, I told Beth I wanted to talk to Lisa alone. Beth looked curious but said okay. I didn't want to be overheard, so I took Lisa out to the gazebo in the yard and we sat on the bench. Lisa, I have a big question for you. If you say yes, you have to promise not to tell anyone. Not Jeannie, not Missy, and especially not your mom. Can it be our secret? I asked. Yes, Mr. Mike, I promise, she said. Good. You see, Lisa, ever since you and your mother moved in, I've come to love both of you. I love your mother very much, and I want to ask her to marry me. Is that okay with you? I said. She squealed and jumped into my arms, hugging me tightly. Then she leaned back and looked at me. Yes, Mr. Mike. I want Mom to marry you. Tears filled my eyes as I hugged her. This means Mom and I can live here with you forever, and we don't have to move, right? She asked. Yes, sweetheart, forever if your mother says yes, I said. Oh, I just know she will. She told me she loves you, Lisa said. Okay, sweetheart. I plan to ask her on Saturday night. I'll take you, your mom, and the whole family out to eat, and I'll ask her then. Can you keep the secret for 2 days? I asked. Yes, Mr. Mike, I promise, she said. To her credit, she did. When we returned to the house, her mom didn't suspect a thing. Later, when Beth thought I couldn't hear, she asked Lisa what we had talked about. Lisa just said I wanted to know her mom's favorite color for a gift. Beth looked suspicious, but let it go. That evening, I told Beth I wanted to take her and Lisa and Mel's family out to dinner on Saturday night. Beth agreed that a family get-together would be great. I called my sister in front of Beth and asked if they could come, and she said they'd love to. This way, Beth wouldn't suspect anything. That night in bed, Beth tried to find out what I had talked to Lisa about, but I told her it was a secret. She pretended to pout. Then I gently kissed her until she smiled, and we spent some quiet time together. Later, as she fell asleep, she muttered, "Bastard," but I knew she didn't mean it. I just chuckled and held her close. Friday morning, I sent my girls off to work and school. Then I went to Austin to a jeweler's shop. I found the perfect ring. It wasn't too flashy, but the diamonds were big enough to show my love for her. I also called the restaurant where we had dined with Mel and George. It was a nice place with good food, and they had a private room. I reserved it for Saturday night. Everything was set. Even though I was pretty sure Beth would say yes, you never know until you ask. That night when the girls got home, I got my usual hugs and kisses. The ones from Beth were warm and loving. She didn't bring up my talk with Lisa again, and I was glad. Saturday, we spent the day swimming and relaxing. Lisa did a great job keeping the secret. Then it was time to get ready to go out. Beth had not yet moved her stuff into my room, so she went to the guest room she had used to get dressed. I went upstairs and got ready. When it was time to leave, the girls came out of their rooms. Beth wore a little black dress, and Lisa had on a cute dress they bought on their shopping trip. When I saw them, I whistled. I am a lucky man. I get to take out the prettiest 2 girls in the whole state. Both girls giggled. On the way to the restaurant, Lisa began to get fidgety. Her excitement was growing. Beth noticed and looked at her, wondering what was up. Mel and her family were going to meet us there. As luck would have it, we pulled into the parking lot at the same time. We met outside and walked into the lobby area. I went to tell the hostess who we were. She took us to our table right away. Beth looked surprised to be led into a private room and glanced at me with questions in her eyes. I kissed her cheek and told her I just wanted those I loved to be together tonight. She didn't say anything else and let me seat her. I had ordered appetizers and the first round of drinks in advance, and they came shortly after we sat down. While enjoying the appetizers, we placed our orders for the main meal. We talked about work and school and enjoyed being together. I sat at one end of the table and George at the other. Beth was on my right, and next to her was Mel. The little one sat across from Beth and Mel, with Lisa closest to me. Finally, it was time, and we finished the main meal. I stood up. Before we order dessert, there's something I need to do if you all can bear with me. Everyone looked curious except Lisa, who knew what I was about to do, and Mel, who I guessed had figured it out. I put my hand into my jacket pocket, hiding the ring so Beth couldn't see what I held. Then I dropped to one knee. Beth gasped when she realized what was coming. Beth, love of my life, I kneel before you to humbly ask if you would do me the honor of becoming my wife, to spend the rest of our lives together, bound by love." Tears poured from Beth's eyes, and I saw her hands shaking. She first began nodding, and then said, "Oh yes, Michael. I would love to marry you and be your wife." "Then, as a token of my love, I would be honored if you wear this ring," I said, showing it to her for the first time. "Michael, it's beautiful. Please put it on my finger." I placed it on her finger. It fit perfectly. I stood and gave her a kiss to the sound of applause from everyone at the table. Lisa then stood and walked over, tugging on my pant leg. I looked down and she held out her arms, so I bent and lifted her up. She first hugged me, then leaned back. "If you are going to marry my mom, does that mean you will be my dad?" I stared at her, stunned, but answered quickly, "Would you like me to be your dad?" Without missing a beat, she said, "Oh yes, please." I looked at Beth. "And how about your mom? Would she like me to be your dad?" Beth was openly crying by then, and she could only nod her head. "Well, it looks like we all agree. I would love to be your dad, sweetheart." Lisa turned in my arms and looked at my nieces, yelling, "I've got a daddy! I've got a daddy just like you!" Beth was crying. I was crying. I looked at Mel. She was crying, even George. The three little girls were just giddy. We finally returned to our seats and dessert was brought in. Mel and Beth started chatting about weddings, and the three little ones talked about how they would be cousins. George and I just sat and smiled, looking at the women in our lives. After dinner, we headed to the parking lot. George came over and offered his hand and congratulations. Then my sister came over, hugged me, kissed my cheek, and whispered in my ear, "Take good care of her, baby brother. She deserves a good man like you. You chose the right one this time." "I will, sis. I will." It was late when we got home, Lisa's bedtime, so Beth and I went to tuck her in. Beth kissed her and she said, "Good night, Mama." Then I bent and kissed her and she said, "Good night, Daddy." "Good night, my sweet daughter," I said, swelling with pride. I stroked her hair, then turned and took Beth's hand to lead her upstairs. On the way up, Beth chuckled. "I didn't think I would ever hear that word come out of her mouth. You're a good man, Daddy." I squeezed her hand lovingly. "And I didn't think I would ever hear that word in reference to me. I like it. I couldn't ask for a more precious daughter. I promise you, my love, to care for and protect her as best as I can. I know you will, my man." The next morning, we didn't wake up until after 9. We got up, showered, and dressed. Downstairs, we looked in Lisa's room, but it was empty. She was already up. Beth went to the kitchen to start breakfast, and I told her I would check on Lisa. I heard the sound of cartoons coming from the game room and headed that way. As soon as I reached the door, Lisa saw me and came running across the room, jumping into my arms. I got a big hug, a smooch on the cheek, and a merry, "Good morning, Daddy." I kissed her cheek and said, "Good morning, my sweet daughter." That earned me another big hug. I put her down, took her hand, and we walked to the kitchen. She ran to her mother, giving her a hug and a kiss too. It was hard to believe this was the same scared little girl I had brought home with me 2 months ago. After breakfast, Beth asked if I would do the cleaning. I agreed, and she called Lisa to help her. I quickly put the dishes in the dishwasher and went to see what Beth and Lisa were doing. When I came out of the kitchen, I saw Beth with a pile of clothes in her arms, and Lisa walking behind her carrying more. I followed them to the bedroom and saw that this was probably their 3rd trip. Beth had spread everything out on the bed. I had a big walk-in closet, but only a small part of it had my clothes. I also had a big dresser with many empty drawers. Beth looked at me. "Where should I put these?" she asked. Feeling playful, I said, "I don't think they'll fit me." She laughed, playfully tapped my arm, and gave me a quick kiss. Then she whispered, "Smart Alec." I laughed and showed her the empty part of the closet, saying it was all hers now. I also pointed out the dresser drawers and told her I only used a few of them, and the rest were for her. The master bathroom was huge with lots of room. I told her she could put her stuff wherever she wanted, even if it meant moving my things around. She thanked me and kindly told me to go downstairs while she and Lisa put everything away. I felt so happy. My daughter was helping my soon-to-be wife move into our room. An hour and a half later, Beth was satisfied that everything was in place. She came downstairs and sat on my lap. After a big, happy kiss, she asked, "So, Mr. Johnson, when are you going to make me your wife?" "As soon as possible, my love. I think you should talk to Mel and plan the kind of wedding you want. Make it as fancy as you wish. Money is no problem. We have plenty," I said. "You mean you have plenty?" she replied. "From the moment you said yes, everything I have became yours," I said, waving my hand around. "This is our home, not just mine. The money in the bank is ours, not just mine. And this heart," I said, pointing at my chest, "belongs only to you." Beth started to cry and buried her face in my neck. "Michael, I don't want you to think I'm marrying you for money. I love you so much." "If I thought you only wanted my money, you wouldn't be sitting in my lap right now," I replied. Beth giggled and hugged me. She looked over at Lisa, who was lying on the floor watching cartoons. "Lisa, honey, I'm going to show Daddy where I put my clothes. You stay here and watch TV." "Okay, Mama," Lisa replied. Beth grabbed my hand and led me upstairs. Once we entered our bedroom, she closed the door. She looked around and showed me where she had put everything. After a moment, she said, "Let's go back downstairs before Lisa comes looking for us." Lisa was still watching TV when we returned to the game room. Beth and I sat on the couch and she snuggled into me. During the commercials, Lisa jumped into my lap, smiling up at me, then turned back to the TV and leaned against my chest. Beth watched her daughter and smiled. "I think my daughter likes her daddy," Beth said. "No, Mama, I love my daddy," Lisa replied, kissing me on the cheek. "I'm glad, baby, because I love Daddy too," Beth said. Life was wonderful again. No, it was better than ever. I had never felt so content. I had a beautiful fiancé and a precious daughter. That night, when we went to bed, Beth let me show her how much I loved her. We enjoyed a tender, intimate moment together, and then we lay side by side, smiling. "Where did you learn to make me feel so wonderful?" I asked her softly. Beth sat up, looking a bit worried. "Michael, please believe me, I've never been like this with anyone else," she said. "I've only been with 2 other men." "Beth, it's okay," I interrupted. "You don't have to bring up bad memories." "No, Michael, you will be my husband. I want to be honest with you. I met Lisa's father when I was young. We were both inexperienced. We only had sex 3 times before I found out I was pregnant, and it wasn't very good. When I told him I was pregnant, he left and I never saw him again. I focused on taking care of Lisa, and there was never anyone else until I met Gary. He seemed nice at first, and even though I was reluctant to be with him, he was patient and waited. Our first time together was just before my mother died. After she passed away, Gary convinced me to move in with him. But then, he began to change. When he was sober enough, he would just use me and then go to sleep. He never did anything to make me feel special. No one has except you. He did make me put his thing in my mouth a few times, but I didn't like it and never let him finish in my mouth. Then you came into my life, my dear man. At first I was scared of you, but you never did or said anything wrong. Right after I got here, your sister told me some things about you, about how we had both been hurt by others. I started looking at you differently, and my feelings began to change. That afternoon, the first time we went swimming together, I knew you were looking at me when I got out of the pool and I felt embarrassed. But when I looked down in the water, I saw that you were excited, and for the first time, I wanted to do something I had never wanted before. I wanted you. I have always been shy about letting anyone see my body, even Gary. But the first time I showed you my panties, I knew I wanted you to see all of me. I don't understand it all myself, but you make me feel this need. Our first night together, when I told you to take me and make me your woman, it was because of that need. I have never felt this before, but I want to be your woman. Most of all, I want you to love me and let me love you back. I reached up and pulled her into my arms. Well, my woman, I do love you, and I will try my best to make you happy. Our wedding was small. Beth didn't want anything fancy. We were married in the gazebo in the backyard. Mel was Beth's maid of honor, and George was my best man. Lisa and my nieces were the flower girls. The only other people there were some of the ladies Beth worked with and their families, and of course, Jim Henley and his wife. I took my bride to Hawaii for a 2-week honeymoon. The first week was just for Beth and me. The second week, I paid to have my sister and her family bring Lisa and join us. Trust me, I needed the break that having the family around gave us. My loving wife showed me much love. Beth continued to work for my sister. She loved being around all the children. She did take 1 year off after our daughter was born. Yep, I have 2 daughters to love and care for now. Next week, we will go to the graduation ceremony for Lisa and Jeannie. They have both grown into fine young ladies. And the money? Well, I still give a lot of it to good causes, and for the rest, I have to push Beth to use it for things she needs. She never had much before and is happy with what she has. I never heard from Jenny again. Maybe she found what she was looking for. As for me, the scars she left on my heart are gone. They have been healed by the love of a good woman. I came to the hill country looking for a new life, and the one I found is better than I ever imagined.